What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast episode 306. It is a fine Sunday, and we were right on time this morning at 6 after because Elgato decided to work this morning for Travis. But the guys are back, and we've got some good topics to talk about today. So I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, joined by these fabulous-looking gentlemen you see in front of you. I'm going to start with the lawman himself, Mr. Hardcore Hogue. How we doing this morning?
I am doing all right. We've got a lot of games to talk about this week, and that excites me.
We are going to be talking about a lot of games today, actually. Yeah, no joke. So, Mr. Tie Guy, who says he's wearing a blue tie, but we don't believe him.
Macalonki. It is blue.
No, that's black.
This is navy blue. Anyway.
Anyway, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. Nice to see y'all.
You too.
This is the end for you.
There's something I was.
I'm just saying the English translation for McClunky. That's all.
Oh,
just
okay.
Mixing it up. Mixing it up.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I threaten the audience every single time I see them every appearance. Yeah. It's important.
I didn't know if there was something else you knew about this upcoming week for me, but we'll see how it goes.
I mean, look, it's a safe bet.
Yeah, I mean, you probably, there's got to be at least like the 40% odds on that one.
If I keep saying it, eventually I'm gonna seem very prophet-like.
Can't be too far off. So, anyway, good morning, chat. Good morning. We are going to be talking about a few things today. So we've got a bunch of games to talk about, as Hogue said. So we've got Star Wars Outlaws. We've got Squirrel with a Gun. We've got the Black Ops 6 beta. We've got Visions of Mana. We've got Concord. We got a bunch of other things to talk about as well. Then we're going to get into the worst kept secret in the industry right now, which is the PlayStation 5 Pro. Kind of break down what to expect there, but I want to really talk with these guys around kind of what we think that consoles even going to look like in the industry in 2024, 2025, its place in the market. And then, of course, what we expect from the upcoming State of Play, which is another worst kept secret, and kind of talk about PlayStation a little bit today and where they're headed. We've got the Nintendo Indie Showcase. And, of course, we have some big releases coming up in the next week as well, including Astrobot is finally here. Super excited. So one reminder before we get started this morning. So next week we are off. So it is September 1st as we're recording this. If you're listening later, next Sunday, the 8th, we are, two of us are out for vacation. So we're going to take the week off, and we will be back the week of the 15th to talk probably a lot of Astrobot, Space Marine 2, probably the State of Play, PlayStation 5 Pro, actual details and all that. So we'll call that out again later, but wanted to let you know ahead of time if you're just checking in this morning. So let's go ahead and get caught up on a couple things. We have a Googleman chat kicking us off this morning.
Nice.
Travis, hit us with it.
Googleman 81, 10 euros. Would purchasing gory, cuddly carnage be appropriate for now? I mean, there's a cat in it. Or would it be advisable to wait until Halloween?
What is this? What is gory
cuddly carnage? Is a game that recently came out. I saw it on Xbox. I clicked on it briefly, and then I thought, I don't know what's happening, and then I stopped looking at it. That's all I know about this game. Yeah. I saw part of the trailer, and I was like, I don't know what's happening, and then I clicked away.
So like most things, Googleman, we can't comment on it properly.
Yeah. I'd say buy it.
I think that's his goal.
Yeah.
To make a comment that we have a hard time interpreting.
I always assumed that he was just trying to get us to Google things. I thought that was his shtick.
I think he gets a laugh out of taunting us, like a serial killer sending a letter to the police. That's how I interpret his actions.
You call yourselves experts and you know nothing of cuddly carnage.
Yeah. I imagine all of his super chats are written in letters that are cut out of magazines. So
that would be actually great if you could show it that way on the screen.
Yeah, that would be very good.
Google it. Thank you as always. And I say buy it. Let us know how it is. Hey, we'll hear from you.
It's not our money. Buy
it. Yeah, buy it. Vintage Willow, 5 season gaming memberships. Rockstar as always, Willow. Thank you very much. Super appreciative. All right. Please make sure if you got a membership to thank Vintage Willow, one of our most generous patrons over here. And DS with a super chat.
DS gives me £2 and says Concord Calamity is sad for devs, good for gaming.
Yeah, we'll talk about
how is it good for gaming?
I don't know how it's good for gaming, but we are going to talk a little bit more about Concord here in a moment.
It is
briefly.
Certainly sad for devs. They feel bad.
Yeah.
Sucks.
DS, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you. All right. And let's of course touch on Tide's picks this morning. Went with an X-Men theme, boys, and I want to say I think this may be the best collectively that the three of us have looked.
I think it's pretty good. First of all,
that's actually what I see in the mirror.
Yeah, okay. Ains, you make a fantastic Professor X.
Yeah, nailed it.
The headphones are perfectly like implemented. It just works. It looks like you're focusing. I love that. Ginger Cyclops, great. I feel like I'd be a great Cyclops because he's kind of a douchebag. That works. And Hogue would be a great Wolverine because he has the opinions of a 200-plus-year-old man. And he looks like he's been through it. Good.
There's a couple questions on Hogue I just noticed. One, that's not really a mask. It's just kind of a line that's sitting on his nose. And then why is one claw 3 and one 4?
Yeah. Well,
just to throw you off.
Yeah. I mean, Wolverine, according to the lore, he can make as many claws go out as he wants. So maybe he's holding back. Maybe
he do the middle finger claw, doesn't he?
Yeah, maybe doing this as an ode to Dan and his 7.
There you go. He's just
maybe
holding up 7.
Maybe he's rating Concord a 7 out of 10.
To be clear, I am in fact a Wolverine. So this all checks
out. Oh, that's true. That is.
True.
I bet you that the AI must have known and taken that into account.
We're coming to you from layers you can't even comprehend.
That's very good.
We're doing here.
Very good. I like the art style on this. You can tell it's very it's got that kind of Silver Age comic vibe to it.
Yeah, we look good.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, it's good.
I think we'd be a great X team. Personally.
Yeah, I agree. And it got seasoned gaming right again too. It's learning. It's learning in real time, guys. I'm scared.
It really is.
So thank you, Tide, as always. Let's get back to this. We had I was gonna move forward, but we just got 3 super chats like right now. So we might as well catch up before we get fully rolling here. Hit us.
Debbie Dubs offers $10 and writes, round 1 of Metallica on Friday was fantastic as always.
I'm glad it didn't rain.
They ended with my favorite, Master of Puppets, which was a real treat. Round 2 tonight with the 9-year-old for their first ever concert.
Hell yeah.
That Master of Puppets, that's the song from Stranger Things, right?
Jesus Christ.
It's actually from Lies of P. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Debbie, for my colleagues.
For the record, that is both accurate and designed to be a specifically bad place to recognize.
Understood.
Round
Metallica.
Round 2.
Go ahead.
With a 9-year-old. That is a time to introduce a child to Metallica. Protect their poor ears.
That's the perfect time to go. They're fun concerts. They're great. People are good. Metallica is incredible live. They really do put on a ridiculously good show. Seen them several times. Yeah, still. And they're getting older. Those guys are getting up there. So they're still really good.
If you would have asked me how old the Metallica people are, I would have been like 100.
No, they're in their late, what are they? They're probably early 60s now, maybe.
Okay.
Something like
Same thing. So your guys' age.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know what James and Lars, there's a picture of them like last week I saw, and I was like, man, yeah, time's moving. So
nice.
He can still rock out. Debbie, thank you. Debbie also follows it up with a second super chat.
Debbie Dubs, $5. On a game note, I beat Planet Crafter yesterday and found out there's multiple endings, so I guess I have to do that all over again. So true.
Planet Crafter. Any good? I haven't played it.
I have no idea. This is the first I've heard of it.
Okay. There you go.
Let's
Too
look
many
it up.
games.
Yeah, there's too many games.
Oh, survival game. Okay, I can get into this. Whoa, 10 out of 10 on Steam. Hold up a minute. Are we playing this today? Oh, it came out in 2022. Okay, so I guess I missed this one.
Yeah, I don't
Now
know.
I want to play it.
But enjoy it, Debbie. Thank you as always for the support. And Chris Jetzer in the house.
Christopher Jetzer gives $10 to write. Guys, I wanted to purchase the Greedfall 2 early access, but with the news that Spider's devs might strike, I'm worried the game will never really reach its full potential. Thoughts? I do have thoughts on this one. I believe I mentioned this before, but some of the devs were talking about how Greedfall 2 is, quote, very behind schedule, unquote, and that it has basically been like a troubled development. And I assume that they're being like pushed to get back on schedule. And I guess some of them are thinking about striking because they live in France, where that's just what you do. You got nothing going on, you strike. And I would say this is a game I would for sure wait on. I would not do the early access, especially at the beginning. My experience playing the game in the demo form was that, I played a version that was very early, which is normal when you're playing early games, that you're getting shown stuff behind the scenes. And then I was told that we would have B-roll in a week, and then that became a month, and then that became 2 months. And so it took a really long time for me to even get like footage of this game that was usable. And I think this is going to be early access for the people who hop in there. God bless them. But if you're not in for a bit of a rough ride for that early access, I would just wait. That's my experience. I think it's got a lot of potential. The team is very talented. I think eventually, if they are given the time to work on it, it'll be great. But my experience with it was that it was very rough and very early, and that was not that long ago. This was during GDC, so it would have been March or April or something.
Earlier this year, yeah. I was going to say, I think that's probably as much insight into Greedfall 2 as you're going to get pretty much anywhere. I mean, you actually have experience with that group. So, yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, especially like we're talking about, there's so many games. Like, you know what I mean? Like, keep this on your radar. There's so many games right now. Enjoy the ones that are fully baked, and then see how this one turns out.
Yeah. Although I guess if you're hoping for like a Dragon Age Origins spiritual successor, I don't know what game to recommend you. It's pretty unique, I guess, is my point. If they're looking for a game like this, go play Dragon Age Origins. That was what they said their big inspiration was. They wanted to make like a OG BioWare game. So,
okay, there you go. Chris, thank you very much. All right, let's get this. Oh, by the way, what was I just going to pull up? Jacoby MC says, talking about Metallica, are those the guys from Fortnite? Which is probably the most appropriate comment for the gaming community nowadays.
Hell yeah.
But
what did they do in Fortnite? Are they characters?
They're skins. Yeah.
They're skins. So you do get to be Metallica in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. So one more thing before we get started, and that is that the review of Ty Guy Travis's and Ty Girl Travis's wedding will go live tomorrow.
Really?
Have it ready today.
You heard it here first.
I do have a tease for you today, which I thought you'd get a kick out of, which is the review summary card, which will be going at the end of the summary. So I'm going to share that now. Audio listeners will try and read this off to you. But here is, and I may change the picture. I've been dancing around with the picture, but here is the review summary card for the Ty Guy wedding.
Hell yeah.
So it's Ty Guy and Ty Girl, tie the knot, subtitle, D-Day. Basically, my quote about this is, from a string quartet playing classic video game music and tabletop games to specialty cocktails and erotic cake pops, the Ty Guy and Ty Girl wedding demonstrated just how powerful PowerPoint can be. Which is a reference that not many people will get, but I put it in there for you and D, of course. And I just wanted to call out at the bottom, which is usually where we put our OpenCritic link. This is not going on OpenCritic, but that no crabs were harmed during the filming of the wedding. So
nice. That we know of.
Yeah, I did
Wow.
give you a historic score. I gave you a 10.
Wow.
The replayability is really low, so I think you could work on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think the replayability for guests is very low, and the replayability for me is very high. So it's a little self-centered.
Yeah.
Project.
On time investment, I treated it as around 8 hours for the wedding. Originally, I had from 1 to 70 years for your actual marriage, but I switched it for the wedding itself. So,
Yep,
Man,
we're not rating the marriage.
If I thought 70 years was a possibility, I don't think I would have got married.
It was funny because a bunch of the pictures I had of you guys at the ceremony had like the photographer right next to you, or like people right next to you. So I was like trying to crop all these different things, but yeah, it was a beautiful day for the wedding. It really was. Everything worked out.
I also love that the photo you've got there, us walking away, you got the Korean tour group that was in.
I know, just staring around the corner, like
I don't
literally,
literally
directly to the left there, like where the picture where I've cropped it is like the photographer, and I'm like, I'm trying to it was tough trying to get just the two of you.
No, that was funny. I don't think I told you this, Ains, but right after we walked out there, the Korean group like ambushed us, and one of them who spoke English stepped forward and like told Dee that she was very pretty, and then gave her like a piece of jewelry off of her body. It was just like, hey, here, I want you to have this on your special day because you're so beautiful. And then they like exchanged contact information, and now my wife has a Korean pen pal because of that. So it was very odd, but hey, good times.
So just a little preview I had some fun with.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm honored. I mean, I had a very fun time, but it's always hard to gauge the guest experience. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. That was
it was good. It was good. All right. Let's get into it a little bit. So I want to, Travis, I'm going to kick us off with just a funny question. We won't stay on this long, but I just wanted to ask you, being IGN and being the reviewer for Concord, and you gave it a 7 over at IGN. How are the comments going for you, man? How are the DMs treating you nowadays?
So I have received hate mail every day since the Concord review in progress went live, wherein I said that the gameplay was good, but I didn't know how long the legs were going to be on it. So that's continued uninterrupted. I mean, people seem to be very upset about it. There's weirdly a lot of people. Again, I don't exist in this world, so I don't really understand this worldview or why somebody would get angry, but I also don't understand why you'd get angry about any of this, so I'm just pretty far removed. But it seems like most of the comments of people being mad at me are not so much as the score as they are about the politics of Concord, right? Like I think people are mad, there's that whole group of people that are mad about like including pronouns on characters and not every character being the whatever type of straight, or I honestly couldn't even tell you what exactly they're mad at, but I get the vibe from them. A lot of the comments are like, lib propaganda, blah blah blah. So it's just a lot of that. It's like a lot of like culture war stuff, which doesn't bother me because I assume those people are mad at something that has nothing to do with my review. There are some people who are mad at the review and think that Sony paid for it, which
naturally
the response has been, I don't know who would pay for 7 out of 10, like a kind of middling score. Like that would be pretty crazy. And they're like, well, it's better than a 3 or 4. And I'm like, okay, but if Sony was paying top dollar, I mean, surely they've got the budget to pay for an 8, right? Like, come on, get them across the threshold to the score that Paul Tassi considers good. So I don't know. It doesn't bother me at all. Just for the record, I'm not affected by this, but they have been very aggressive.
Yeah.
People really care about this one. I don't know why.
Yeah, we usually don't get a lot of negative feedback on our channel. Obviously, far smaller, right? But yeah, there's been some interesting comments thrown my way. And I got
even
your favorite one
on your outfit,
even on my channel. Yeah, people telling me certain things, and I got your favorite yesterday, which is
such a funny way of putting it. Certain things,
which is my review should be more factual as they proceed to rant off things like the game having gotcha mechanics and other things that they say are facts.
Gotcha
So it's,
mechanics. Interesting.
yeah, we're not dealing with the brightest people here. So yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, some good stuff. But it was quite funny. But
Well,
yeah,
I continue to love Concord. We've talked about that
it's
here,
fun, dude.
but I
Yeah.
do want to at least respond to that earlier super chat that said it might be good for gaming if Concord fails. I do think that there is a reasonable take that is in existence, especially for Sony fans, that says, I want more Last of Us games. I want more cinematic single player experiences, and I want Sony to fail on making these multiplayer live service games. I don't agree with it. I like Concord, but I do think you could make the argument that says, I don't want Sony to be getting into the live service bag chasing game. And so this is a good thing. I don't think that's fair to the devs. I don't think it's fair to the game, but I do think that that could be a reasonable take outside of DEI or politics or anything else you want to talk about with respect to Concord, which basically doesn't exist, guys. It's not a story-based game, really. It's a multiplayer shooter. But I can at least look at that situation and say, I can understand somebody saying, I don't want Sony going after that type of game. But I hope you buy Astrobot then.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
I get I disagree with that worldview that like Sony should just keep doing the thing.
I know
they've
you
always
do.
done. Yeah. But I will say I think the characters are fun. Like I don't know much about them because, as Hogue pointed out, it really isn't a story-based
That's one
game.
of the things me and you called out. They didn't build out the characters.
I wish they would have built up the characters more, but I will say there's like potential. Like to me, they say things when you're getting into battle where you're like, okay, these guys are kind of fun. Like they got kind of a goofy Guardians of the Galaxy vibe to them. That's kind of cool.
I think they mostly have cool backgrounds.
Yeah. I will say the only thing that annoyed me about like the implementation of like, for example, including the pronouns on the characters is they're the same size and text as the character class. And sometimes that is actually confusing.
It is because they have a couple there where like the fungus guy says
undecided,
like, unknown. And it looks like, are you trying to tell me something about how he plays? No, that's the
exactly.
But
I legit didn't even know what I was looking at. It says tactician undecided. And I was like, oh, did I forget to select a setting or something? Like it says undecided. And then later I was like, oh, that's their pronouns. Okay.
No, it's a fair cop because it took me a while to figure out that that's what that was saying too.
I feel like there's another place for that information. Like if you're going to have like character cards or whatever, but like being in the same spot as like the character class, which is like important to gameplay. I was like, that's confusing to me. I'm sorry. I just didn't understand that's what they're doing. But aside from that, I mean, whatever, man, they're making characters. It's their choice. It's in space. So I assume there's a lot of weird persuasions when you get into the alien world, but I don't know. People are just very upset about that specific thing, which is kind of surprising to me. I mean, be upset about the fact that, it takes 8 minutes to find a match in Rivalry, which is their best game mode. That is kind of brutal.
That was like the first night. Come on.
No. So I'm doing an article for the site about wait times. So I have an Excel spreadsheet and I'm logging on at like various times throughout the day. And I'm tracking like how long it takes to queue in each of the game modes, in the morning, in the afternoon, at nighttime, and it's basically like a Rivalry is like between 6 and 8 minutes, and a lot of times you get timed out between 8 and 9 minutes, and so it's actually like we're gonna do an article on like how bad are the wait times in Concord and that sort of thing that I'm collecting data for, and in Rivalry it's kind of bad right now after the first week. I think it got a little worse. Also, I am solo queuing, which I feel like Ains, you go in with a group and you probably have a much better success rate when you do that.
Yeah, well, and I also play at prime time. I play at night. So yeah, we were playing it nonstop the other night. But yeah,
when I was with a group, it was a lot better. Yeah. I'm trying like 6 in the morning, 9 in the morning, I'm trying different times and I'm logging it all for an article. So I do think that like I commented on that in my review. It didn't impact the score, but I did like a little block quote about like, hey, wait times popularity of a game doesn't affect how good it is, but in a multiplayer game, if you don't have players, that can impact the game. And so there is like a worry of like, is this game's popularity going to make it, or lack thereof, going to make it worse for the people who did invest in the game and potentially ruin their experience, because you're already seeing that with games that are like really popular, like Helldivers. A couple months later, player population drops off, people lose interest and move on. Concord basically didn't have a population at launch, so the idea of that going down even further should scare people who spent their money on this game, because it's like, what is their situation going to be like in a couple months?
I mean, we've all said it, right? But I think the only kind of reasonable option we're going to see in pretty short term, I would think, is some sort of a PS Plus edition or something to kind of give it a boost. And then, but I think you have to then pose the question of, well, the people who invested $40 or $60, what are we going to do for them if we just suddenly dropped in PS Plus 2 months post launch? You don't have to do anything, but I think you probably want to at least ask that question.
Well, they don't have to. They won't have to do anything if they wait until the times are intolerable, because at that point you're restoring the game to the people that bought it. But that's not the ideal situation for Sony, certainly.
No.
And like I said last week, or maybe the week before, I remember watching Battleborn die because I just couldn't play it anymore. I would wait so long. So I don't want that to happen to Concord. I think Concord is the best playing first-person shooter in a while, but here we are.
Yeah.
And I don't think Sony's had to work through these particular questions before, at least not in recent memory.
No, and maybe going back to the original point, I think that's a good thing in the sense of PlayStation needs to be thinking about these things because it will play into future releases.
Yeah, I also just want to point out that like a game's design and how fun it is to play is pretty separate from the model it chose to sell itself to, and its monetization and its release strategy. And if you're including release strategy and monetization into a review score, which you shouldn't, but if you are, my score would be lower because I think they completely screwed up the launch model. Like, that's an entirely separate question, but like if it were me, I would not have released it at this time for $40 with this setup. I just think I get what they were going for, right? They wanted to like harken back to the old model where you just buy a game and you get everything and you don't have to deal with season passes and all that stuff. But like, you're a live service multiplayer only game, and that's just not what people expect. And it makes your game feel less exciting when you don't log on and there's like a reward path shown to you on a season pass. Like, I just think they didn't keep up with the times in a way where it was an intentional move, and I think it was just like the wrong move in this ecosystem. And I think they just made a lot of mistakes with how they marketed this thing. I will say though, I think the model of selling the game for a upfront cost to your most loyal fan base and then making it free a couple months later is the model. I think that's like how these games work now. Like, they see who will pay for it, and then after that they make it free. And I mean, you look at like Fortnite did that. I know it's kind of a different thing because they changed game modes, but like they sold their game and then made it free. Like, a lot of these games, that's just what they do. I think Apex is different. There are games that were free from the beginning, Halo Infinite's multiplayer, etc. But like a lot of these games, they make you pay and then they make it free like a couple months later anyway. I don't even think that's unprecedented, really. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because one of the most common responses to me talking about Concord at all when it came out was, I'll just wait for it to come out on PS Plus. But yeah, I get that. And if the times do get bad enough, and they haven't been bad enough for me, but it's like Brawl is under a minute, and the one with the control points is like a minute and a half, and I don't usually try for Rivalry. So
yeah, we'll see. We'll be talking about it in a month's time, I'm sure, and see where it is. But yeah,
Brawl is really fast. Overrun is slightly longer, and then Rivalry takes forever. And what's funny is when I've talked about wait times online, a lot of the commenters are like, "Oh yeah, I don't touch Rivalry. That's just not for me." And it seems like a lot of people are like, they just like killing things in deathmatch, which to me is the least interesting mode. But like, I don't know why it's so popular every game. Everybody just wants to play deathmatch.
Yeah,
you don't have to think about it too hard. Sometimes you just put on Concord.
I mean, that's what the Black Ops 6 beta is really good at, which I'll talk about briefly. But I mean, you sign on, you just run around, shoot, respawn instantly, and shoot again. I mean, it's mindless.
But if you're playing a shooter with roles,
Oh, I trust me, I agree with you.
Yeah, I just don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like the mode that you would pick in a role-based shooter. Like, to me, it's what is the point of a support? So in deathmatch, a support character is just helping other characters get kills. I just don't
pretty much.
Lockout on rivalry makes you subconsciously think that that's like the tricky mode. That's the hard mode. I don't want to think about it that hard. I'm going to play the brawl. I understand how a team deathmatch works.
Yeah,
I even understand how kill confirm works, although not everybody who's playing it does.
Very
Trophy
clear.
hunt, yeah. I mean, constantly. So my buddy Bert has been playing like Dawn support characters, and we'll play Trophy Hunt or something like that, and I'll end up like 22, 23 kills, and he has like 20 assists. You know, that's pretty much what we're doing, you know, because I'm using like Lennox or Paymar or someone that's like pure damage output. So it can work. It's just, I agree with you. Like the game Rivalry, as I think we both wrote in our review, Rivalry is where the game mechanics come to life. Like that's where you can see the design sensibilities of Concord. And it's a shame that, you know, more people aren't digging it, I guess, but we'll see. Anyway, we won't stay too much. We've talked about that enough. I want to talk about the biggest release of the week, and I know Hogue does as well.
Let's talk about Famicom Detective Club.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Star Wars Outlaws released this week, and this is one that we've obviously been talking about for a while. Major release, obviously big IP. I will let you guys talk about this. And Travis, I don't know where you are or playing it. I played this back in June at Summer Game Fest, which I talked about. I have not played it now because I'm just waiting after vacation. I'm playing Wukong. So, Hogue, I'm going to let you start on this one and rant a little bit. I know that
I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I'll just let you go. Hit us.
Okay, yeah. So I'm about 30 hours into Star Wars Outlaws.
Whoa.
And one of the things I wanted to say is if this show were recorded at a different time of week, like Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, this would be a very different conversation we're going to have about Star Wars Outlaws. And Alex, your reviewer at Season Gaming, has been putting up with my DMs and messages about me trying to get through this game all week. And so he knows how much difficulty I was having. The short form discussion point I want to have here is that this is a 9 out of 10 game that is 100% trapped behind a 15-hour 4 out of 10 game. And a lot of people are not going to go through that barrier, but it does exist. That 9 out of 10 game is there, but it is prefaced by some of the worst design decisions I have seen in all the stealth games that I have ever played. And if you say Outlaws, Rick, Outlaws isn't a stealth game. It's an Uncharted action game. Well, Ubisoft lied to you, or at least deceived you as to what this game is. This is primarily a Splinter Cell type game where you are trying to get into restricted areas and take something or do something while not otherwise alerting the guards that are around you. But especially for that first 15 hours, you don't have the proper stealth mechanisms that you're used to having in 2024, right? If you think about playing Mirage last year or the year before, yes, Mirage. And you think about it compared to Outlaws, Kay has almost none of the powers and abilities that a typical Assassin's Creed game gives you, and that Ubisoft has worked on for years to understand where the game lives, right? Rather than giving you automatic losses and having everybody understand where you are at all times. They have the shadow system. They have various things in Assassin's Creed that help make stealth games fun. And in the alternative, Star Wars Outlaws takes this notion of, we want you to actually feel like you're there, right? I'm going to use the word realism. I know it's Star Wars, but verisimilitude might be better. It takes this notion that instead of game levels, it's going to say, what would a moisture farm look like? What would a reactor core look like? We're going to put you in that area. We're not really going to mark which ways you have to go. Your fighting isn't going to be great, but it is going to be capable enough that you think, well, maybe if I just got a little bit better, I could go through those 3 guards. And no, in actuality, we've put a very small secret way to go around all this so you don't have to make any of these fights, which winds up being a game that you repeat sections of time after time after time, trying to read the developer's mind as to what they were thinking to get you through this particular area, and doing it wrongly a lot. So in the early eras of this game, you could tell they had a great world. You could tell that they had worked a lot on walking around these various areas. They're very lived in. They're very populated with people and robots and things to see. It's very Star Warsy. It feels great. It was really the driving force behind getting me through this early play session, because at least for me, you are going to hate this. You're just going to repeat things that you hate, and they're going to do it to you for 5, 6, or 7 missions in a row. And by the time you get to the 5th, you're like, well, what am I even playing for, right? Like, if I hate this, the reward for playing more of it, the reward for finally getting through this section is more of this. And I don't want to do that. But if you can get through the first real world, there's a prologue world and then there's a first real world. If you can get through the first real world, the actual world building of the other planets and not having you just go through all these stealth missions with limited powers is so much better. There's a real Star Wars game there. It is maybe the best Star Wars game I've ever played, but it is sitting behind the biggest barrier I have ever seen.
Take a breath.
That's what I wanted to say.
Take a breath.
Calm yourself. Let meditate. Clear your mind. And let the light side of the force.
You've been waiting to say that for a few days. I could tell.
Man, like it's you're playing it on Wednesday, and you're like, what am I gonna say on the Bitcast? I hate this game I was so excited for. And then you keep playing it and you're like, oh, I found the fun. And this happened about Friday night. It's actually when I stopped communicating with Alex because I didn't want him to know that I liked it as much as I did when I got on the show today. So sorry about that, Alex. But thank you for putting up with me bitching about Star Wars so much.
Also, that's very funny that you made him listen to you complain and then were silenced once you had compliments. It's a very interesting strategy for friendship.
Alex is great, and he's a great guy to have on the other end of the DMs, especially since he reviewed this game, so he knew what I was going through, and I would talk about these various areas, and I'd be like, this game is stupid, Alex. I don't know how you gave it as high a score as you gave it. This game is stupid.
Alex is great. I'm trying to get him to move to San Francisco. Alex, I have a spare room. Come on, man. Cheapest apartment in San Francisco.
Yeah, in fact, his review, as he was reviewing it last week, and he gave it an 8 at the end, by the way, but he pretty much sounded like you. He was very frustrated early on with the game, and then by later in the game, really, really loved it. So
it feels bad, man, for hours and hours. Like when we talk about games will get good after 10 or 11 hours, usually I think of it as a slower ramp up and the story kind of takes off. This isn't really that. This is terrible stealth game design from like the early 2000s, if not earlier, that just locks you behind all this to get to a really interesting world and game that they built afterwards. It is the worst. I am still offended that it exists in the way that it does because it's a really good game at some point.
So I'm at the first planet. I'm in the first 20 hours, and I was told based on all the reviews and people I've talked to that the game gets good. And
it literally does. Like not like other games that we talk about. It literally gets good. They do not even give you enough skills. They don't give you enough abilities. They don't give you enough knowledge about what you're playing for the first 15 hours. That first planet. Like I was so surprised. Alex had mentioned Splinter Cell in his review, and I had read it before I had played this game. But I was so surprised that it really is at its core a stealth game, and not even a current Assassin's Creed that is an RPG with stealth mechanics and it has things that you can escape from and whatnot. This is you get caught in certain areas, the game is going to stop and restart, and you are going to have to do it again.
Don't get caught. I mean, what are you doing?
Yeah. Don't get caught.
Well, and you start to get more on the developer's wavelength with like what powers you have, but they don't even properly, I don't even want to say tutorialize. They don't even properly give you the context for knowing how to deal with two people at once, right? And the way this game works, it's always going to feel a little bit clunky. You have your little alien friend, and you have a one-shot stun. It's the only remote silent thing that you can do. And it's on, like, I swear to God, it's a 60 or 90-second timer. You can use it once every minute or two. And it is the hardest thing because I did come straight from Mirage. I was playing that last week. I talked about that. And it is so much better in stealth that my initial reaction was, I can't believe Ubisoft released this way if this is the game that you wanted to make. But being an outlaw, doing all these crime syndicate missions, looking for treasure, unlocking vaults, doing this shady stuff in a Star Wars universe that feels real is amazing. But you're not going to get there for a long, long time. And I expect that most people, especially that don't have a love of Star Wars like innately like I do, are going to bounce off that beginning hard, and say this is the worst game I've ever played. And I don't know that you can disagree with them when they bounce at that point in time.
Yeah, so I'm not of the opinion that the part I'm on right now, because I'm maybe 12 hours in or 15 hours in, but I'm still pretty well on the first planet because I'm doing everything and I'm reading all the lore and stopping to talk to everybody and just like filling my brain with Star Wars. Not that it needed more in there. But to me, it's not a 4 out of 10. It's just sort of like maybe a 6. Like it's kind of mediocre. Okay. Like I'm kind of like, this is fine. I'm not having a ton of trouble with the stealth, and I haven't had to like repeat any sections. I've heard that people said that if you get caught, it like stops you and stuff. But the times I've been caught, I guess I'm just getting caught during the times where I can just fight people. And I've been doing that, and the combat's fairly forgiving. So, I'm just kind of working my way through it. It's okay. And then everybody's telling me that it gets really good later on. And so I'm waiting for that to happen.
You've seen some of the stuff that it does really well. For one thing, it has you pick up quests and side quests through things called intel, which is a little bit similar to the way Assassin's Creed like Valhalla gives missions, which is not giant exclamation points above people's heads, but you overhear things, you read something on a data pad, and then you get sent somewhere based on what you heard or you read. And then that can lead to a big mission chain that makes sense, but that you didn't even know was there. And it's very organic feeling. It is awesome. And they do it on these massive different planets that have these different biomes and different looks and feels. And it is one of the best open world experiences I've ever had. And you could feel that even when you were dealing with the 4 out of 10 section. You just didn't want to advance any of the missions, or at least I didn't, because it sucked so much. And so... yeah, if you don't have my experience, I'm fully willing to grant you that you're better at this than I am, Travis. But if you have my experience with these early missions, like I was stuck on a fueling station for maybe 24 hours, and it's just the worst.
What?
Well, I haven't gotten to a fueling station yet, so I'm looking forward to that.
I meant real time, not in game.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what? All right.
24 hours, like I don't think he was playing the whole 24 hours.
No, as a matter of fact, I bought one of the other games that we're going to talk about as part of this We're Playing section in order to cleanse my palate from Star Wars, because I was in that place. And I think we've all been there as gamers, but you're in that place where you bought a game, you spent your money on it, you were excited about it, you realize there's things to like about it, and it's just not working for you, and you kind of try to force yourself through it. And I imagine it's the same for embargoes and reviewers, but I couldn't do it. Like I was hating it too much. Like it was just creating negative energy. And so I got a different game, and that game made me happier. And I was able to take that happiness back to Star Wars and go through this very tough period of the game. But it is excellent eventually, folks. It is excellent eventually.
Like I said, I have the copy. I just haven't started playing it because I want to play more Wukong. I'm going on vacation. I figure, well, I'll just wait to start Star Wars until I'm back. There's a couple patches, whatever. I'm very curious to play it now. You're making me want to play it more because I'm kind of curious to see if I have such a negative experience in those early areas as you have. So we'll have to come back to that. But because I was super excited for this one too. But yeah, I think I have a little more tolerance. Yeah, I know just in past conversations with games like this, where it's kind of like a little open, a little do whatever you want. It's kind of tough at times to get your way through. I think just judging, I'm kind of curious to see if I have that same negativity as you do.
I think you probably will see what he's talking about, because like I'm not as harsh on it. I also haven't played as much as he has, and even in the first planet, I'm still like early-ish. But like, there's an example. Like I did this optional quest where you have to go and steal 3 key cards if you want to get through a door and get an item, right? And the 3 key cards you have to steal are like in sections that you need to stealth through. But the way that you get there and the whole navigation of like you're flying across the world, and then it's unclear when you're in a zone you shouldn't be, and people will be mad at you, and then you get off your your bike, and then all of a sudden you get attacked by like a hound thing that you can't, it seems like maybe you can't kill them. And then you finally get to the part where you're supposed to stealth, and then the pathing is a little weird, and it kind of feels like it just dropped the people on the map in no specific order. And so you're kind of chilling in bushes, and maybe there's not like an obvious approach. So you're going around and looking for like, where am I supposed to come into this zone? And then you finally find a place to come through, and you take out the guys and you get the key. You do that 3 different levels, all equally confusing and feeling like they're disorganized. Like they dropped random things for you to sneak into in like an open world, and then didn't like choreograph any of it. And then your reward for doing all of that, this took me like 2 hours, right? Is like, you open up a door and you get 1 item, and it doesn't even like impact gameplay. It's just like, oh, I got some materials. I guess one of them's rare or something. And you're like, what was that? Like, so I get it. Like I did that, and it was just like, I don't really understand what this game's doing, but I also have the benefit of like a bunch of people who've played this game telling me it gets good eventually. So I'm just like putting up with it. But like, the opening is rough. Like I get what Hoag's saying. Like I'm in there, and I'm just like, yeah, the stealth is like very basic. I'm basically just whistling at people, and then when they approach me, I'm taking them out, and I'm rinsing and repeating, right? Like I'm just like doing stuff like that I've done in every stealth game I've ever played, except for executed a lot more sloppily. It's like this weird crossover. It's like a sloppy crossover of open world games and stealth games, which typically have a more organized structure to them, where you feel like, okay, when I approach this building, I'm very clearly meant to come in from this area, and they've provided ways for me to sneak through it. And this game feels like they kind of didn't do that. They just built the world and then hoped that you would find a way to sneak through it.
Well, I'll say they built a way, right? Like, this is the problem I have, the main problem I have, despite my ranting, which is that you're expected to read their minds all the time. And there are certain powers that you have. You have a grapple hook like Uncharted 4, and you have certain other things that have basically interact points you have to find. And when you find those, you know, okay, I'm on the developer's chosen path. The yellow paint guy was here. I know where I'm going. And they do some really stupid sign marking. Like they have, because the grapple hook points will be above you, and because players notoriously don't look up, they have this little sign that is an arrow upward whenever they have an interact that's up, which is stupid, right? It doesn't make any sense in the world. It's silly. But when they don't do that, you're like, what? Why put the stupid sign there?
Yeah. So I'm finding the interact points, I think, fine, but they're like, even then, Hoag, I would argue that in the areas that I'm in, they're like a little problematic. Like you'll find a grapple point, and you'll be like, okay, so this is how I'm supposed to get into this base. And you grapple up, and as soon as you get up there, there's just like a guard standing there that doesn't move, and no shrubbery to like hide in. And so you're like, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to come here because they didn't really provide a way for me to get through. Or you'll find like a grapple zone that you take down into the area, and then later when you're trying to get out of there, you'll find out it's too far up for you to take it back up, and you're just like, wait, what? Like there's just a lot of points like that where you're just like, it feels like they didn't really organize this super well, and they kind of just assumed players would find a way in without providing any sort of like pathing or lane design of it. It just feels very murky.
Well, like I said, I think that's right. I think the murkiness is one of the big complaints, which is that they do appear to have built the spaces more for realism than game level. So you don't wind up feeling like you're sorting through the developer's intended pathway very often, except when you die a lot and you're like, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do here. And you try 7 different ways and you hear the same dialogue 7 times. And you're like, oh, I missed that Nyx can hit this button 30 feet above my head. And if he hits that button, it'll open a vent over there. And if I go through that vent, I don't have to go through any of these fights. And great. That's lovely. But that doesn't feel like you're playing a game so much as you are in Groundhog Day memorizing where all the things are and how the patrols work. Versus a modern day Assassin's Creed, you have the eagle and you do the marking. And one of the stupidest things this game does, just to talk about like the bad stealth mechanics, is that when you're in a no weapon area, you obviously can't use your gun, but you also can't pull out your binoculars to tag people. So you use the electro binoculars like Luke does in A New Hope to tag people Far Cry style.
Yeah,
and that's
he
super
does
helpful.
that in A New Hope. I remember him tagging them. in A New Hope. I thought that
Yeah,
was
that's exactly what he does.
yeah.
Little
He goes,
arrows.
Imp, and he tags him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was good. The Tusken Raiders with the yellow arrows over their head for the rest of the movie. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so but like they don't let you use that because it's technically part of like your arsenal. And they do that kind of thing throughout the stealth portions of the game. So it's all very clunky. Even using Nyx and you attacking another person at the same time is clunky. Doesn't ever feel great. But I do think after that first planet, you begin to get on their vibe a little bit more. And they don't have as strict stealth missions. They do have ones that kind of either go into combat mode themselves or allow you to kind of fall out of stealth in a more reasonable way. So
we've talked, or I should say, you guys have talked a lot about the stealth aspects. But this is, as we know, or as they claim, right, the first open world Star Wars game. So my thing with open world games is I like to just go explore and do my own thing, right? I don't want to be told anything. Just leave me alone and let me go explore. Is the open world fun to explore? Are there things to discover? Are there like Easter eggs for Star Wars universe? How's the world?
The open world is amazing. And
Okay.
there's points of interest to discover across all the planets that make sense for the planets. There's Imperial bases that you'll see from a distance that you can get to. There's little guard posts. There's a fueling station that you don't know what's going to be in there, and it'll tell you how many treasures there are. And the treasures are things that are not just resources for buying other things, but that are specific unique items that you need to help get your upgrades and ability paths. And the blaster that you have has a number of upgrades. The ship that you have has a number of upgrades. The speeder that you have has a number of upgrades. There's stuff to go chase after all the time. But on the mission path, it has what I usually consider the Red Dead Redemption problem, which is that if you turn the wrong way, if you sneeze, it's going to say, get back on the quest plot line, bro. And that can sometimes feel a little bit constraining. You say, oh, I'm going to go around the left here because I can see the two patrol guys. And it's like, no, you're going to go straight through. This is the mission. Get on the path. And so it does do that in the missions. But I also want to at least respond to the first open world Star Wars game because I think it's the first AAA GTA inspired open world Star Wars game. But even a couple of years ago, the Lego Star Wars Skywalker saga is ostensibly an open world Star Wars game. And it has some of the same beats as Outlaws in terms of going around and getting side quests and doing criminal enterprise work. And that was one of the things that I thought about going to when Outlaws was making me so mad. So I understand what they mean. They've shorthanded it to first Star Wars open world game. I don't think that's fair. I think you've got the Old Republic. I think you've got Lego Star Wars. I think you've had open world Star Wars experiences. This is just designed to be more of that Red Dead, Grand Theft Auto open world. So I think that it's fair. It is a new thing. And I think it's fair that a game that has this stealth, stealing stuff and getting into restricted areas component is a new and novel feeling thing. Like Splinter Cell never did this open world approach to stealth. So I think it's all fair. I'm interested in the fact that they really, in my opinion, undersold exactly what this game was from a stealth standpoint when they were marketing it. And I don't know whether that's a lack of confidence. I don't know whether they realized that it came out that way. I can't speak to that. But I do feel like even having watched all the IGN first looks, having been excited about this game, I was not ready for what this experience was. And part of the 9 out of 10 second half of the game is that you're more ready for what this game is. I don't know that it gets better in designing the spaces as much as you have more equipment to deal with it, and you're more aware of what Outlaws is trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say I think the open world's great, especially if you're a Star Wars nerd like me and you're just like
it's fantastic.
Just drinking it all in and being like, oh man, I love any chance I get to just explore a cool world. The planet I'm on now, which again, I'm in like apparently the worst part of the game, it has a little bit of like look, don't touch quality to it once you get out into like the open field and you're just like flying around, because every time I see something of interest, I'm like, oh, that could be cool. You get like anywhere near it and all of a sudden it's like, you know, you're going to get caught. You're going to ruin your reputation with like these various factions you're trying to make happy. And if you ruin your reputation from them, they'll be even more aggressive to you when you go into their territory. And so it just has like a little bit of a look, don't touch vibe to it that I find pretty annoying. And I'm waiting for that to be done. It's like very clear there's one faction that I'm already in good graces with, and now I can go into their territory when I want, and it makes things a lot less like prickly. But the point I'm at in the game now, it's like, man, nobody likes me. It's a lot like being an IGN reviewer, to be honest. It's giving me because no one likes me. Nobody wants me to go to their house or anywhere near where they live. And they're trying to kill me every time they see me. And yeah.
I would like to say something else positive about Outlaws while I think of it. I really like Kay Vess. I like Kay Vess much more than Cal Kestis. And I think her voice actor is tremendous at kind of delivering emotionality without sappiness and actually doing line readings that convey more than just what the words on the screen say. I think she's wonderful. I think she's a little undercooked as a character because the basics of Outlaws is you're a person that's down on their luck and thinks that a big score is going to make their difference in the galaxy and they're going to be on their way. And that's it. That's your drive for the whole game. So it's not as compulsive. It's not as propulsive as a Mafia game. It isn't as well realized as a Red Dead or a Grand Theft Auto in terms of character and story. But Kay Vess in particular, I think is really well done. And she has a robot companion throughout the game that I think is really well done. And his name is ND5, which I believe is a reference to either Nathan Drake or Naughty Dog 5, because there's so much Uncharted in this recipe as well. You'll be climbing and exploring a whole lot of stuff to go with your Splinter Celling. But ND5 is cool. Kay Vess is cool. I know that there's been a lot of internet talk about her face and like whether she looks good. She looks like a 70s character, which I think is a good Star Wars fit. And her voice actor is tremendous.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying her too. She's got like kind of an understated voice that you can kind of feel the sick sense of desperation in her voice that I think she is down on her luck, and I'm interested to see. It's disappointing to hear that she doesn't get developed more because I kind of feel like she's raring to go. Like I feel like there's an arc coming up, but at this point you're just kind of watching her make all these rookie mistakes, and she always feels out of her element anytime she talks to any criminal organization.
The game has an arc, but it's
great.
Plot driven. It's not character driven. We're gonna pop a heist on you, and you're gonna have to figure it out.
I will say the one thing I'm experiencing right now that's kind of making me scratch my head is like it seems like she's been in the underbelly her whole life, but every time she talks to somebody who is part of a criminal organization, she's like bad at lying and like really gets nervous, and you're just like, how are you this bad at this? Like I feel like you should be like Han Solo, where like you're just like this is the only world you know, and so you're like more comfortable around people who are criminals. But right now I'm getting like the Kimmy Schmidt, like just like complete
they put her in a young adult novel a little bit much, and certainly early on. But I think that, especially since I got to hear her line readings a lot in a row, they're very good. And she does add something. I don't know this actress. It's one of the things that I notice in a game, right? Is like, you're not one that I recognize immediately as having heard 16 times before. And so that's always a little bit nice. But then to actually be good at it is great. So I think whoever that is deserves plaudits. She's very good at that character, and I think she adds a lot to the game.
Cool. Oh yeah. Well, this is one like this is my recreation game. Like unlike Hogue, I didn't look up anything about this game before it came out. I didn't watch our IGN first or anything. I kind of just completely detached. And so I'm just going in as a fan who knows nothing and just having a good time. And I am at a rough part in the game, but the fact that I know there's hope on the other side is making it worth it to me. And I'm not quite as angry at it as I think Hogue was during this period, but it also sounds like I'm behind even when where he was when he was at his.
You are. I didn't start to lose it for a little while from where you are describing.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I've got some time to go before I go full postal, but also I play a lot of really, really bad games, so this might end up being kind of a blip for me at this point. I'm just sort of used to it, and then when I get to the good part, I'm gonna really love it. I also really like the Jedi Survivor and those games. So like for me, Star Wars games have been pretty good for a while. Like I'm eating out here as a Star Wars fan playing Star Wars games. So excited to play more.
Cool. Yeah, I'm super excited. And sorry, I was dealing with some clown in our chat. Apologies, I was out of the
Nice.
for a moment
What
there.
did he have to say about me?
Nonsense. But yeah, I'm super excited to dive in. The problem I have now, I was thinking, is like I haven't started it yet at home. I go on vacation. When I come back, both Astrobot and Space Marine are out. And I'm like, Astrobot's taking priority over everything for me. So it's like, I don't know when I'm actually going to get to Outlaws at this point, but I definitely want to try it soon. So next couple weeks, I guess. All right. So Travis, I wanted you to comment real quick because you've got another review out on Squirrel with a gun.
Hell
Apparently
yeah.
there's a squirrel running around with a gun. So
There is. Yeah, there was a very clumsy government spook. He tripped over something, dropped his gun, squirrel got a hold of it, and the rest is history. So, yeah, pretty brutal for the United States government. They're hit pretty hard by this snafu. Yeah, so Squirrel with a Gun. It's a sandbox game in the same vein as actually, this is sort of its own subgenre, which is sandbox games where a animal becomes a big problem for humans. The Octodad, Dadliest Catch is part of that genre. Untitled Goose Game is part of that genre. Goat Simulator is part of that genre. It's a anytime an animal is given free reign in human society, they become an issue for humans. And so this is in that long tradition of this subgenre. In this particular case, you play a furry little boy who's packing heat. He's a big believer in the Second Amendment, and he uses that Second Amendment to fire submachine guns into the faces of residents of a suburban town. It's quite horrifying. Yeah, so you're given a gun, you run around, you shoot things, your guns get more extreme until you're holding grenade launchers and sniper rifles and flying on top of drones and stuff. So this game is my kind of stupid. Like I love Octodad, I love Untitled Goose Game, I like Goat Simulator, and so this is more of that sort of thing. But it does have problems. It is extremely short. You can beat this game in like 2 or 3 hours, which is sort of the biggest problem, is that the game kind of is funny and then it runs its course. And even at 2 to 3 hours, by the end, you're sort of like, all right, I get it. Like I've seen kind of all the stuff that's in this game. So it's very short lived and kind of the joke runs its course pretty quickly. The other problem is it's got a bunch of bugs. Like the game crashed on me like 6 times in a couple hours. And then it's also got static save points. And if you forget to use those, you will lose a bunch of progress and then have to like replay through areas. And so, it's buggy, crashes a lot. It's very short and sort of you run out of things to do by the end. And so I gave this game a 6 out of 10, which is okay. I think it has a lot of potential. I would love this team to make a sequel with a larger budget and more development time and flesh it out a little bit more. One of the big problems with it is like shooting people is not terribly sophisticated. Like they basically, all the people you fight don't really attack you. They kind of just stand around and wait for you to shoot them. And then, you can go in for a finishing move, which are very funny, but every weapon has exactly one finishing animation. And so once you've seen those all, you're kind of like, all right, now I'm just like repeating the same, little cutscene where I go crazy on them with a grenade launcher or whatever. But yeah, I mean, for a 2 to 4 hour game, you can get a lot of fun out of it, and there's a lot of stuff to explore and acorns to find, which is the sort of jiggies that you're searching for, to use a Banjo Kazooie terminology.
Talking his language.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. The jiggies that you're hunting are acorns, which is funny because at the beginning of the game, they don't just imply, they outright kind of show you that the acorns are not actually acorns. They're just things that are vaguely acorn shaped. And so the squirrel is basically eating like random stuff in town, it would seem, including top secret government technology that happens to be kind of vaguely acorn shaped. And so, the acorns that you're searching for are like your squirrel's fevered dream of acorns. And perhaps you're just eating like mailboxes and stuff. We don't really know what's happening in the lore, but it's it is a very stupid game, guys, and y'all should play it because it's cheap. You can get it for like $18. I think it's on sale right now already. And I want to support this game because I really want them to make a sequel. But yeah, right now it's it's okay. It's an all right game. You can get a couple hours of enjoyment out of it.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's I know there were a few people on my timeline I saw that were excited about it. So kind of funny that it's out. It sounds like exactly what I would have expected out of a game called Squirrel with a Gun. So
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. I'll touch real quickly. I don't know if either of you have played it. I'm doubtful, but the Black Ops 6 beta.
I have not.
Okay. So I'll just touch on it quickly. So, I mean, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 beta is live, started yesterday or Friday, excuse me. The big thing with this one, at least right now, it launched with 3 maps, 3 modes. I think on Friday, I'm pretty sure they added another map yesterday just to kind of see, or to kind of give players more of the experience. I mean, it's exactly what you expect from Call of Duty. Feels like Call of Duty. The big thing in this one, of course, is the what they call the omnidirectional movement, which means that you can basically run and dive in any direction. So you can sprint strafe, you can sprint backwards, and you can dive backwards facing forwards with your gun, or side to side, kind of Max Payne-ish, except not in slow motion where you're diving sideways. So I know I've talked to a few of my friends who are kind of Call of Duty hardcore people, meaning they really enjoy it and play it every year. They're really liking what they're feeling here so far. It is polished. It's exactly as you expect out of Call of Duty, excuse me. TTK is very short. If you weren't familiar, they basically made your health bar in Modern Warfare 3 150, and it's still a short TTK. They're reducing it back down to 100 in Black Ops 6, so the TTK is even faster, which means, you turn a corner and blah, you're dead. You know what I mean? It's like super
That's
instant.
my experience with Call of Duty.
Yeah. Literally I posted this on Twitter. The first match I logged into on Friday, I spawned. I think I took 5 steps and got shot in the back. I'm like, oh, it's Call of Duty. Okay, cool.
SWAT.
SWAT. But I mean, the people I talk to who love Call of Duty have really enjoyed the beta so far. It's just I'm not a Call of Duty guy, really, at heart. I'll play it. I'll play it with friends, because it's a competitive shooter, but it's not on my top list.
You don't answer the call?
No.
Of duty?
No, it goes to voicemail.
That's
And,
too bad.
It's a generic voicemail. It's not even me recording it.
The person you are calling is not available.
But yeah, I mean, check it out. Obviously, as we know, the nice thing, which I was reminded of, because the first thought in my head was, oh, I'm not buying this. And I usually don't, to be clear, on Call of Duties. It's in Game Pass this year, which is cool. Which means, my friends who do play Call of Duty, I can still log in and play. It's on PC and Xbox. You just get it. So,
why Call of Duty is not for you? Because
I know, but go ahead.
Because like the game, you are in beta mode.
You would have gotten along well with the guy I just kicked out of our chat.
Rebel.
But I'm curious to hear what anyone else thinks. If you put in the chat, I'll read some of them. But because I know, like I said, some of the people I talk to are really enjoying it. But yeah, it's what you expect. If you've played Call of Duty, it's a polished Treyarch Call of Duty. The thing I think that is exciting about Black Ops 6 is that this, they've had this weird timeline with their 3 studios, and there's been kind of missteps along the way where one studio's game was supposed to release, development's not going well, so another studio kind of jumps in, and it's kind of resulted in a few major releases that haven't been what you would call top tier Call of Duty. This one does look to be a fully featured top tier Call of Duty, so you're going to get that full suite of multiplayer, zombies, and a proper campaign, not like a 3-hour kind of they took multiplayer and made it a campaign type of thing. So
don't commit to that, Ains. I don't want you.
I'm not committing to it. I said looked.
Okay.
Looked.
No betas allowed.
Yeah. So as always, though, the game's going to sell gangbusters. I mean, if you don't know, Black Ops is the most popular of the Call of Duty monikers.
And I would say with reason. I think the Black Ops games are usually on the better side of the Call of Duty.
Yeah. So anyway,
Story.
I figured I'd mention it because it's out there. People are playing it, enjoying it. So the one thing that I think, and we're not going to talk about it here at length, but one thing that's kind of weird is Activision has this auto ban system in place in Call of Duty where, you know, if it thinks you're messing around or whatever, it auto bans you. And apparently like a bunch of people, including Call of Duty pros, are getting auto banned when they're not cheating. And yeah, they got to
Like
do
if I'm
something
just too
about that.
good, it'll ban me.
No, it's
No.
programmed to ban betas. You got to keep them out of
Stop it.
keep out of Call of Duty.
Get them out of the
I
pool.
don't know. Does
I
Call
know
of
where
Duty bring
Travis
out
is going to come
something-
from on any given episode.
Yeah, he's
Call
always
of Duty
coming from
just
a different direction.
brings out something violent within me. I don't like who I become when we talk about Call of Duty.
Oh my god. Anyway, that's Black Ops 6. Taking about as complete of a turn as you can. How is Visions of Mana?
Okay, so this is the game that I purchased in order to cleanse my palate and feel better about gaming when Outlaws was not doing it for me. And we talked about Visions of Mana, the demo, a couple weeks ago. We gave our rating suggestions and guesses. And I said I wasn't sure I was going to buy this game. But I've always been a big fan of the Mana series. Secret of Mana was a big deal back in the day, and it really made me a fan of this entire kind of cozy universe of elemental spirits and giant trees. This is a game that takes a little bit of a darker story approach right from the intro, no spoilers, and says that each village that's aligned with an element has to pick a person and sacrifice their soul to the mana tree in order to keep mana flowing around the world. And that's an interesting twist on the Mana universe format. The graphics are fantastic. This game captures how Secret of Mana looks in 3D in a way that I couldn't imagine. This is one that I thought was actually a remake of Secret of Mana because it captures that look so well. And the combat isn't really anything to call home about. It's functional, but the character designs, the environment, and the monster designs are so detailed and interesting that it was just exactly what I needed to cleanse my palate, and it is great. I'm really enjoying it a lot.
Good.
Oh yeah.
I know you're looking forward to that one. Yeah. By the way, I'll just comment. If you remember, we made bets on these upcoming releases for the Open Critic guesses.
Oh god.
I don't recall betting anything. I recall answering a question about what I guessed the score would be.
Oh,
Just admit you're a degenerate gambler, Hogue. Just admit it.
It's true. He bet thousands, and now he's trying to back out of the deal.
Welch.
So Concord and Wukong, I got. Star Wars Outlaws. Travis is our winner. By the way, we all came in way too high on Outlaws. We were mid 80s to low 90s. Hogue went 91 on Outlaws, which it sounds like after you play 20 hours, it might hit, which is a weird way to say
I
it.
thought everything looked fantastic about Outlaws, and it does. It's just underneath some dreck.
Yeah. And then Visions of Mana ended up same exact score as Outlaws on Open Critic at a 77, which Hogue was the closest one on that at 78. So we'll see what Astrobot and Space Marine 2 do, but that's where we ended up. We kind of split them all. So
what did we say on Concord? How off were we? Because I think
on Concord, I was closest, but only by a point. So Hogue said 80, you said 78, I said 76, and obviously it's in the high sixes. So I just happen to win that by being the lowest of the three.
Well, are you doing Open Critic or Metacritic?
Open Critic, yeah.
Oh, so it's higher on Open Critic. That's interesting.
I haven't looked at Meta. I have no idea. Yeah,
it's 62 on Meta.
Oh, then yeah, it's higher on.
But I think it was 68 earlier this week, so it might just be changing.
Okay, all right, fair enough. The only other thing I wanted to mention this week, and we'll go through this quickly, is just Witchfire. I talked about this game a little while ago. I did an early access review of it from a small developer called The Astronauts, and this is a very unique game. It's like a gothic first-person shooter roguelite. And it's very unique, very beautiful, plays really cool, very cryptic if you like that sort of thing. I think I mentioned that in my review. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that they had the next kind of big update to the game. They added a new region, they added new weapons, new items, and I went back and actually played it a little bit last week. Still love it. So again, if you want to check out a game that's quite polished and quite interesting or unique in the early access arena, I would recommend Witchfire. It was previously only on Epic Games. It now released on Steam as well with the latest update. So you can check that out. I don't know how much it is, but you can check it out. So
Yeah,
Well,
I
made the joke earlier, but we should mention that the Famicom Detective Club did have a new release this week.
yeah, do it.
Cameo the Smiling Man. And if you like detective kind of games, or if you like the remasters of these specific games from like the 80s that they released a couple of years ago, it is excellent. It has got a lot of high production values. It's Nintendo made directly, and it does scratch that Ace Attorney itch, which I know has a new old entry coming out the same day as Astrobot next week or this coming week. So
September 5, counting down the days.
So if I'm sorry, Hogue, I was gonna real quick email this the Smiling Man. This is the one they teased like 2 months ago that people thought maybe a horror game, if I'm remembering correctly, but I guess it's not.
No, it's a Famicom Detective Club game. It does have spooky elements, just like some of their earlier ones do.
Okay.
The Girl Who Stands Behind is a ghost story kind of detective mystery.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
they're good games. They're different. I love supporting these types of games. And it's got a lot of good production values for these kinds of games, right? You can go really light with production values on these if you want, because it's essentially talk and ask questions and what subject and that kind of thing. But they use a lot of kind of animated characters and environments. And I think it's pleasing to look at, even while you're mostly just trying to solve a murder.
I think you are pleasing to look at, even though I'm mostly trying to solve a murder.
Real quick on the so shout out to my friends over at the Nerd Chat. This is Jose. He said he was talking in the chat about getting banned. So I was talking about the ban system that was banning people. He got banned in the Black Ops beta, tried to appeal it, and the appeal page is broken, he said. So
must say his explanation here sounds pretty cap to me.
I mean, he's a pretty well-known cheater. I will say that about Jose.
Not swearing, not cheating, no mods, etc.
Yeah, he's probably doing all.
The lady doth protest too much, methinks.
Well, I think the problem is that this is exactly how a cheater looks like when you see them like interact with Xbox or anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
And
I know
that blows up the reasonability for people that aren't cheating or modding or anything. And it's not like automated systems are perfect.
Yeah, I wasn't going to put him on blast, but you guys did it for me. So there you go.
I believe in the Nerd Chat. I stand with the Nerd Chat on this. I have no idea whether he cheated, but I got to believe he didn't.
Yeah. So we've got other super chats and stuff to get to. We've talked about the games I want to talk about. I'm sure there's a couple others you guys maybe want to mention before we get to the super chats. Hit me with them.
I want to recommend a game called Date Z. It is a dating sim. In Date Z, you have exactly 1 week to find
like zombies. Like, is it a reference to DayZ, or is that just
it is? Okay. In this dating sim, you are a high school student and you have 1 week to find a date to experience the zombie apocalypse with. And if you are left without a partner, you have no chance of surviving the zombie apocalypse. And so the stakes could never be higher. You must find your romantic interest and woo them before the zombies cometh. This is the game. It's a funny idea. It's well executed. People should play this one.
Travis, I've got a question for you.
I've got an answer for you.
As a married man, is your love of the dating simulator genre going to fall off at all?
No, because the love of the dating sim genre is largely a thing because of the girl I married. She is really the person who introduced me to dating sims, and also the reason that I play so many of them, because anytime there's a new one out, she's like, well, I have to go see my 2D boys, because, you know, I could be a lot of things to my wife, but I cannot be two-dimensional, try as I might. And she really likes the 2D. She likes the 2D boys. She needs
Did
them.
you watch the Nintendo Direct Indie World this week?
Of course.
Okay. So are you guys anticipating date everything?
Yes,
The Everything Dating Simulator.
So Date Everything has been on her list for a while, and I'm on the PR list for that. So anytime they have any news, I get it, and then D and I read the press release aloud because she's very excited to quote Date Everything. She's a horny little girl. I mean, I don't. There's
you're not supposed to talk about your wife that way, Travis.
I wish there was a more polite way to say that, but she is a thirsty bitch, and I put a ring on it. So you gotta do you gotta do. But I will always support her love of dating sims.
I actually think, in all seriousness, because she likes him so much, I actually think that could be a lot of fun in the sense of you're kind of seeing the different outcomes and like the different situations that can occur in those types of games playing together. So that's
it
cool.
also helps me internalize and understand how she ended up with me because she has terrible decision-making skills. Her judgment is very, very questionable. And so I get to see that. Like, I watch her play dating sims, and like sometimes I'll just poke my head in and be like, how's the dating sim go? And she'll be like, well, I happen to choose the guy who's a serial killer, and now I'm in a cage in his basement, and he's keeping me in a cage. He's feeding me very little food and water and hurting me. And I'm like, what? Like, how did we get here? So I don't know, man. She's wilding out.
D, he's talking about you again.
Get in here.
All right. Well, I wanted to ask the question because I did see that dating simulator that was announced to me. I didn't know that there was press and other things happening with that game. But
that's been a pretty, in the dating sim community, that one is highly anticipated.
For folks that don't know, it's apparently a dating simulator where like the date options all take on the characteristics of like furniture and things, so that you can date your lamp or your wardrobe or your dresser.
JD Vance is very excited about this game.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh, I could sense it. Oh boy. Yeah, this that sounds interesting is the word I will use, but I will wait to hear from you. When does this game come out?
They didn't have a date on it, did they?
Let me check the press release. It's still in my inbox.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious because I know we'll be talking about it when it does come out. All right. You know what time it is, Hogue?
October 24th, which
that is not what time it is, but okay.
October 24th. It's coming out on my birthday.
Okay, cool.
It's pretty cool.
But I tried to set you up, but you were distracted, Travis. So I said, you know what time it is, Hogue?
Hogue's notes. Hogue's notes. Now it's time for Hogue's notes.
Well, the truth is, folks, that I mostly played Outlaws this week, and when I wasn't, I was playing Visions of Mana, which we already talked about. So on the more independent level, I did play a game called Witch Spring, which I haven't played enough of to really judge as of yet. But it's essentially you play a witch that loves pie and is being hunted by witch hunters, and you have to go and collect things out in the woods and make potions and things. So it seems like it could be pretty cool, but I haven't played it enough yet. Honestly, Emio the Smiling Man, the Famicom Detective Club game, is also one that I would recommend to folks try out. They are slower games. They aren't as wacky as Ace Attorney, but they are interesting if you like solving mysteries. I think that's it. What's the other Hogue's notes? I watched the Rings of Power first 3 episodes.
I watched the first one last night, so we'll see.
They were interesting. I think as long as you can separate them from kind of Lord of the Rings as you interpret them, I don't think they're as bad as some people say. But
yeah, I'm not like I obviously loved the whole Lord of the Rings moment that we had back 20 years ago or whenever that was. But I'm not like a big Lord of the Rings guy, so I'm watching the show for its own thing, and it's okay. It's fine. It's fantasy, I like it.
I quite like it. But I also, the Silmarillion's my favorite Lord of the Rings thing. So
yeah,
I don't think it's doing a great job of following what I remember, at least, of what I knew about Middle Earth lore.
Well, it's
I don't know any of it, so I'm just going in.
I think it's pretty it's pretty true to the Silmarillion. You got a shapeshifter, multiple actresses playing Sauron. It's advanced. I would describe it as advanced. I'm surprised it made it to a TV show, to be honest, because it's just so. Lord of the Rings lore is very hard to digest. So as a Tolkien nerd, I'm quite excited to watch more of this. I have not seen all the episodes. No spoilies. Although
I won't spoil anything. It's all the setup episodes anyway. They're just different.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So there's 3 episodes out now. When's the rest drop? Do we know? Does anyone know?
I think we go week to week now.
Oh, it's week to week now.
You
Okay.
get
I thought
3
it was in
episodes,
bunches.
and then I think week to week after that.
No, I think the plan for Andor season 2 is the bunches. That might be what you're thinking of, Ains.
Okay. Maybe.
Oh, I want Andor in my veins. Put it in me.
So do I. Yes, I agree, Travis. Although it was a little bit much in terms of presentation.
What was much about it? Explain.
Moving on.
In great detail.
Let's get caught up on super chats here. We've got a few to get through.
Yes.
DS gives me £2. I absolutely will buy Astro.
Hell yeah.
Bot. Don't worry, Hogue.
Okay, now fun fact about Astrobot. Unlike Spider-Man, there's no hyphen. He is a bot, and the adjective is Astro.
That's why I put a dash. I wanted to be clear he was editorializing.
I will buy Astrobot, and this is a complete random comment, but I found the coolest thing yesterday. There's a guy in England who makes game manuals like you used to get in your physical games for games that have released. So if you buy like a physical copy of Astrobot, he makes a full color glossy game manual with everything about the game that you can then put in the case like an old school game. It's amazing. I ordered Astrobot, Demon Souls, Bloodborne. He does a whole bunch of different games. Very cool.
Specifically Sony first party then?
No, I don't know. I have to go back and look at their page. I can share it, but it was very cool. It's for weirdos like me that like that kind of stuff. So.
Bloodborne is second party, sir. Second party.
Which one was second party?
Bloodborne.
Technically true. Sony owns the IP, but FromSoft devved it. Yeah. So, Christopher Jetzer.
Christopher Jetzer, which sounds like a Star Wars name, gives $10 and writes, Hogue, I watched a DD Cross SS Plus.
Defining Duke.
Defining Duke Cross Sacred Symbols.
That's right.
With Colin Ziegheil was saying that the purchase of Firewalk makes what? Sorry, I thought we had to all say that. Was saying that the purchase of Firewalk makes him potentially think Jim Ryan was fired as opposed to simply retiring. Bungie and Firewalk, bad buys.
I didn't watch this episode, certainly, Christopher, but I do think that Bungie and Firewalk seem to be a little bit outside of what Sony had traditionally acquired, which are things like Insomniac that they've worked with for decades. I think certainly Bungie and Firewalk, in retrospect, look like tricky companies to get set up in the Sony infrastructure with the Concord release information and with what we've seen from happening with Bungie. I don't know whether Jim Ryan was fired or not. Certainly the timing of his announcement and the rapidity of his walking away do suggest certain acrimony there. But I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, we don't know the specific details, but I'd agree with you. It looked kind of odd a little bit. Bungie, we've talked about ad nauseum here in terms of Destiny and their developers and how they're going to help PlayStation first party. And Travis has, expounded upon that greatly. Firewalk is an interesting one because quite simply, it's a decent sized studio, a big investment, and they've just put out a game that despite, as we've talked about a lot here, despite the game itself being very good, it doesn't seem to be doing very well at all on the market. And now you have a big investment and a lot of people that have a product that is probably not making them, has lost them a lot of money. So I don't know where that goes. I think we're all curious at this point.
But Bungie, I would argue, is still a good purchase for Sony, even though Destiny's not doing well, because I think the brain trust they gain, and especially with what they're trying to accomplish as a company, is worth it. Firewalk is an interesting one because they have a lot of the same chops. In fact, there's some of the same people that worked at both of those
Well,
studios.
not to interrupt you, but I was going to say, if you've played Concord and you've played it a decent amount, the gun mechanics are Bungie. I mean,
Exactly.
they're that.
They're very, you can see the DNA there, but
Yeah.
it seems like they bought Firewalk specifically for Concord, which now I think probably was a bad bet. So I would say Firewalk probably a worse bet than Bungie, but I think the strategy was a little different. And by the way,
what we don't know behind the scenes is Bungie, yes, was purchased for its brain trust. We agree on that point, but we don't know how much the Bungie brain trust had to do with things like Concord's going to be a winner and buy Firewalk, right? So we don't know exactly what the internals are. Is Bungie giving good advice? Is Sony feeling like they're being led down a bad path? We don't know.
It's true. I think there's some people that contest that Bungie actually isn't good at live service games, which I think is a point you can certainly debate.
Well, being good at making Destiny is different than being good at consulting on what else is going to succeed, certainly. And you'd like to think they overlap. That's one of the reasons you bring them in if you're Sony, but they might not.
Yeah, well, I think they have a lot of experience about how you do live service games that's separate from like, I think this game is going to be good, but we know from the Last of Us multiplayer thing that they are at least being consulted on like specifically which experiences they think are going to do well. So, and by the way, the Nazi reference was because people, every time we bring up Last Stand Media on the Bungie podcast I'm on, because Cog is on it, somebody says that Colin is a Nazi, and so I have to legally mention Nazis every time his outlet comes up. So
I'd say we just steer away from mentioning Nazi.
Why? Good luck reviewing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Yeah, but there I get to shoot him and punch him and other things, then it's worth it. But
I think it's a fair request for Mains, honestly.
Fine. But yeah, my point was it was a reference because I think some people in the comments didn't get the reference. It's a reference to my older podcast. Okay, I know actually.
Fair enough.
It's fine.
By the way, I just shared the link to. I didn't expect this, but a couple people asked to share the link to that guy's shop who sells the custom game manuals. I just put it in both chats, so you should be able to find it. I'll pin it here in a second. Chris, thank you again for the super chat. Want to shout out Cherry Mills, member for 19 months on the Hogue side of the house. Cherry, thank you so much.
Thanks for producing all those cherries at your mill.
Thank you, Cherry, and thank you for putting up with Travis.
Random name has a couple of super chats.
Random_name gives me $4.99 and writes, Concord has been a really good game, but I found myself falling off partially due to wait times and my weird schedule. Free to play should have been the model. I pretty much agree with all of that. I wouldn't say really good game. I'd say it's a good game.
Sorry, guys. I'm trying to do like too many things at once here.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it. I'm not going to stay on it, but yeah, I mean, the model here is clearly not working. In fact, it's kind of hard to even say because we don't know at what point the model versus just the game itself and the design of it has really turned people off. So, it's probably a mixture of both, but I don't know what those percentages are. So, random name follows up with
Random_name.
This is about Star Wars, by the way, obviously.
Another $4.99. I don't agree with Hodge. I thought the opening stealth missions were perfect and clear. Also, if you knock somebody out, it will reset the stun gun. That part is true. Although I never use the stun gun, which I probably should.
There you go. Okay.
What do you think, Hodge?
Yeah, I was going to say I was waiting for Hogue to say something, but
if the stun gun resets on a knockout, I haven't ever done that. I can tell you about times where I was stuck behind a box for a solid minute waiting for the stun gun to come back. But if that was communicated to me, I missed it.
Fair enough.
Nice.
Random name, thank you very much, my friend. We got straight shot.
Straight shot. like a landmass. Okay, $5. Travis, why are you rewriting history? Here's some free-to-play games. Deadlock, Rogue Company, X Defiant, and Valorant.
I'm sorry, if
Rewriting
you're going to
history
read
about
them
what?
directly, that's Rouge Company.
Rouge, yeah, sorry, Rouge.
Rewriting history. What's this in reference to?
I don't really know, but
It was something about when Travis was talking about games becoming free to play after being purchased, and that most of them don't start out as free to play.
Oh yeah, no,
Oh.
I was trying to say there are definitely a lot of free to play games, but there's also games that they sell you and then they become free to play later. I think both of those things.
I do think it's fair to say that we are aware of the existence of games that start out as free to play.
True. Fair. I would actually even say Overwatch is an example of one of those, by the way, because they sold you the
Overwatch
game.
was $40. Yeah, when it started.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And
years
now
ago
it's free to
now,
play.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it is a longer time ago. You don't see that. Trying to think of recent examples. I don't think you see that as often now. You did at one point. As we've talked about in a larger scale, not relating to Concord, but the kind of pricing model and how developers make money from their games is always evolving. We've seen that for decades now. So be interesting to see what goes, because honestly, and I don't want to get us into a whole nother conversation, but for me, the whole free to play and you have to buy the battle pass and then you have to do all these other things or spend extra money. Like I'm kind of tired of that. Personally, that's personally. Obviously, the market, that's kind of where things are. But it's just like, it feels like, I don't know.
Well, it's funny because I see a lot of sentiment that agrees with you, Ains, where they're like, we're tired of free to play. We hate being nickel and dimed. We don't want this ongoing. People complain. And then when a game like Concord comes out and they charge you $40 straight up, then they're like, this is never going to succeed. It's going to die.
Why is it not free to play?
I can just play Overwatch for free. So it's this, and I'm sure those are different people saying that. Please God, let those be different people. But I'm sure they are, but it kind of shows you that the market exists the way it exists. And I totally understand and even agree with the people who say that like $40 strategy straight up was probably the wrong choice for this particular game. And I think that's clearly shown in the results.
I completely agree. And like you said earlier, that's a separate conversation from the review of the game itself, which, again, I was told that I need to include facts in my review. So
you really
do, Ains. More facts. Fewer Nazis, more facts. Season game.
It is a fact that I think this opinion that, I mean, you could say that, I guess. Technically counts.
Yeah. It's a fact that this is my opinion. Straight Shot, thank you for the super chat. I want to shout out Silk and Ed, a member for 20 months on the season gaming side. I recommend Crypt Custodian. It's a Metroidvania, which I believe we talked about briefly last week. I think you mentioned it, Hogue, if I'm thinking of the right game. Maybe
I did not mention it. I mentioned Crypt Keeper. But Crypt Custodian is one that I haven't checked out yet.
Crypt Keeper is the host of Tales from the Crypt. Crypt Custodian.
Speaking of Metroidvanias, though, we can mention that the Game Boy Advance games were released by Konami in a package this week called the Dominus Collection, I believe.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did buy that.
So there are fun things to play if you like Metroidvanias. Crypt Custodian apparently is one that I think people have enjoyed. I have not given it a try yet, but I do love those Game Boy. I think they were DS games, right? I keep calling them Game Boy, but Nintendo had a bunch of different names for their handheld.
Yeah, I don't remember, honestly. But yes, it's apparently a quite popular package. Elu and SG was playing it and loving it. So, yeah.
I did see Crypt Custodian on the store, and I thought, maybe. Didn't buy it.
Silkenet, thank you. Shout out to Rob Frawley II. Let's get it.
Rob Frawley II, $5. Coffee Stains Satisfactory is leaving early access on September 10th with its 1.0 release. Factory fans, check it out.
Are there Factory fans, Rob? Are there fans of Factory just as a general?
Oh, there are Factory fans. And let me tell you, Satisfactory, every time I see that game, I feel something inside me that I know is just going to spend a million years if I play it. And so I have not allowed myself to play this game because I know I'm going to lose my life to it. That has changed earlier this week when my editor told me that I will be reviewing Satisfactory, and I am getting a code tomorrow. So it comes out on September 10th, or it gets out of early access. I will be playing it tomorrow, and I'm absolutely certain I'm going to lose 8 days very quickly. But there you go. I'm reviewing Satisfactory. I could not be more excited and scared. I am very afraid of what will happen to me when I play.
I like to think that's how you go into all your reviews, Travis.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, sometimes like survival games, I like Pal World. Like I just knew my life was going to be over when I got that game. But this one is like, I've actively avoided this game because I am so afraid of how much time it's going to take for my life. But yes,
Why did your editors assign it to you? Did you tell them this?
No, they offered it to me. They were like, "We know you like these builder games," and I was like, "I do." And they were like, "How do you feel about reviewing it?" And I was like, I had to check with D. I was like, "D, how much are you gonna hate me if we play this together?"
How much automated factory building can you take, new wife?
Yeah, because she usually helps. She'll like, because it's a multiplayer game, so she likes to do like the household maintenance and gathering and that stuff while I do like the building and all that. And
I'm not going to make any comment on the gender roles here.
Well, here's the thing. She said this in her vows. Ains can attest that she will do the traditional gender roles in survival games only, and then in real life I do all that stuff. I'm the guy who cooks and cleans and shops. I do all that in real life, and she does it in video games. So it's a very weird dynamic. But yeah, she did say in her vows, I promise to cook and clean and do typical gender roles in survival games only. And that is, she has lived up to that. So there you go.
All right.
Nice. Rob, thank you. Rob has a comment about Concord as well.
Rob Frawley II gives another $5 and writes, "What do you think about a dual approach to Concord? 1, free to play with microtransactions by default, or 2, buy it outright to remove all microtransactions."
This is kind of a mobile approach, right? They have like those mobile games where you buy out of ads and things. So
yeah,
I don't have a problem with it, but
I like it.
I don't think the market.
I'm surprised that's not more popular, frankly.
I think it has a tendency to feel a little bit scammy. Like if you don't present it correct in the application itself. And certainly it's more obvious that there's an incentive to make the ads really uncomfortable or to make the microtransactions really ridiculous to get you moved into the other bucket, right? So I don't know. It takes a careful and deft touch.
Yeah, I think something like this, I get what you're saying, because that is probably the closest we have to it, like a mobile situation. But I think in the live service world, they would probably try to get you to not pay the full price, because they know that if you're a free-to-play player who stays on, they'll probably make more money off of you without you buying the unlocked version. So
it feels like they would advertise it as free to play and then just quietly say, if
there
you
would be like
there
would be a button in the back somewhere that's like, pay full price for everything. But I think the reason we don't see it is because if you're spending all of this time working on microtransactions and live service season passes and stuff, it really hurts your bottom line if there's just like a whole bunch of people that move around that. And I also think that part of the joy of a live service game is seeing like those seasonal progressions and meters go up and stuff's unlocking. And I think if you pay a upfront cost, there's like a weird question of like, how does that work for you? And are you just getting everything by default? Or are you just not having to pay for season passes? And then if the game goes on for 6 years, do you just never have to pay for anything ever again because you spent $40 at one point? Or there's just a lot of like logistical questions that I think are the reason that this isn't a thing. But I love the idea in concept, and I often hear, especially from my older gamer friends, the idea of like, I wish there was a button for me to just pay a stop annoying me with all this bullshit like button. I totally get that sentiment of like, just stop dinging me and just let me pay $60, $100 to just stop.
I'm also thinking of certain MMOs, right, that used to offer lifetime subscriptions, so that you didn't have that constant monthly drip feed. And that was always attractive to me. I got one for Lord of the Rings Online. I got one for a not terribly successful MMO called The Secret World, because I do like to just say,
I remember that game.
I really like that one. Speaking of Funcom, like we did last week, and Dustborn and other things that are in the media, but The Secret World was fun, but it had a lifetime subscription, and it's exactly what you said, Ains. They started doing like expansions, and they had to figure out exactly what the people that had the lifetime subscriptions got, so they didn't feel like they were being stolen from, but also not just giving away the store. And that's a tricky thing for these companies who are primarily focused, remember, on making video games and not on figuring out business models to sell video games. So that's a That's a fight all the time.
Yeah.
But I do like paying a bigger money up front to avoid the nickel and dime feeling.
Yeah. Was there? I could have sworn there was something where, like, if you buy it, you got like a year of the pass, right? Like, haven't we seen that where it's like, there's a seasonal pass per quarter. 1 year
Like
is 4 passes.
The Destinies come with like 4 seasons, right? Like when you buy the box.
No idea. But yeah, I'm thinking of something. I don't remember what it was, but that's all right. Yeah. So thank you, Rob. Appreciate the super chats. We've got Sid with a good question as well, which I could likely talk a little more to.
Siddharth Shishokar gives 1,000 rupees and says, the crew system in Concord stood out to me, but it's weirdly at odds against how people generally play these games. What do you guys think about this from a design point of view? How can devs introduce such design elements better that subverts expectations?
That is an excellent question.
Does he mean the passives or the system where you put the cards together to have it in like rivalry mode?
Yeah, I think
it's in all the modes, so it is the passives.
Yeah,
but it affects all the modes. But rivalry is where it kind of comes into play more, I'd say.
It strikes me as a mechanic that they baked into the game with the idea that rivalry would be like the signature game mode, because in that mode you are required to switch around characters if you're winning, and it definitely benefits you. But I think he's right that in like if you're playing Brawl, typically you just pick one character and you stick with it. I like that mechanic exists even in those modes, because then it incentivizes you to hop around and try different characters in the same battle, which I think is cool. But I think they don't go far enough. Like I think there's too few of them. Like you can kind of get the same buffs by using different characters if they're in the same like category. And I also don't think it surfaces that idea to the players enough to like make them know that they should hop out and do it. So yeah, I think the game needs a better tutorial or something around that mechanic.
I think your latter point is exactly it, which I think is what he's referencing, right? Is that, the mechanic is actually, I think it's really cool. I think it also, to your point, Travis, it incentivizes not only switching players, but as we both said, it's very a team and ability focused shooter. So you need to adjust in real time a lot of the time. So people who just kind of pick the same character over and over again and run straight at the enemy team, you'll notice don't do as well. And that's by design, because it's not as I wrote in my review, it's not a point and shoot shooter. It is more mechanically kind of deeper than that. And so, but I think this is another area where Concord has really failed from a educational perspective, right? It doesn't expand on the characters very well to get you endeared to the characters or anything that really makes them super interesting at the start. In parallel, from a gameplay perspective, this is where they've really fallen short, where it's a cool mechanic they barely even mention. Like there's nowhere you can even really go where it says, here's how it functions in these game modes. It just kind of shows it on a couple screens and you're supposed to figure it out.
I think that's fair. I'm trying to think where I learned how the passives work, and I think it was from a game dev diary video. So
yeah, which nobody playing the game is going to even watch. You know, what I mean?
Of course not.
I spent the first hour of Concord reading the tutorial. That's where I learned about it.
Yeah, they do have a how to play. They do have a series of how to play screens that are really long.
Yeah, they're very in depth, and they also introduce very cool like terminology that doesn't appear anywhere else in the game, but it kind of shows you their design philosophy. Yeah, exactly.
They never reference sloops outside of those screens.
They never talk about sloops, which was such a cool concept. I was like, that's like, you guys clearly know what you're talking about with this stuff.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like Concord has some really smart design decisions. The passives that make you bounce around, the sloops as a concept, which stands for skill loops, which is that you get your powers back, not just on time, some are on cooldowns, but that you can have actual skills that get your powers back that relate to what your character is supposed to be doing. And this notion of the rivalry mode where, you can pick which characters you want to take into a crew, and you can pick 3 of the same character of any given variant and all these various rules that you're creating a card deck essentially for a kind of competition that you'd see in board or card games. Like there's a lot of board game design influence in Concord, which as a person that loves board games and card games, immediately jumps out at me. But you're very right. They might not explain it well enough to what people are looking to do. And certainly the reason Brawl is so popular is that they do all have guns, and you can go shoot the other team that's outlined in red if that's what you feel inclined to do.
Yeah, there's a design director. I was trying to find his actual account name because I forget it, but the design director of Concord has been posting some really cool information on Twitter constantly, and I told him, like, please keep posting these because there's a whole bunch of unexplained mechanics in Concord that are really interesting. Like, for instance, Crips, who's the person who can turn invisible and puts like the locational things around. He basically said that when you put your locational thing around, for every person that you identify, every enemy that you identify, you regenerate one of your pulses. So like it's a constant give and take, you know, and every character has these types of abilities built into the game. And I'm like, that's the kind of stuff they really needed to focus on to make the game stand out. And I think it does stand out when you play it enough, as we've talked about. Once you really get into the game, you start to see the depth. But people aren't giving it either a chance or long enough or find it even interesting enough to get to that point.
People are
The
buying
depth is
it.
there. They have some really smart design people.
Yeah, it's good. So.
Actually, Ains, related to cool mechanics and shooters, I meant to tell you, when I played Splitgate 2, they had a mechanic I really enjoyed, which is every time you die in combat, your respawn timer gets significantly longer. But there's a mechanic where your respawn goes down by 3 seconds instantly if your teammates score kills while you're dead. And so if you have like there's like moments where, like, you know, 3 of my teammates would die and they would all be on 18, 20-second respawn timers. And then I would like get a quick succession of kills, and then they would all respawn like instantly, you know, because you see the timer just boo, 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 really quickly, which I thought was pretty cool. I'd never seen that.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. I'm really excited to play that one. Sid, thank you. Nice super chat. And a couple quick shout outs to Midnight Dreary, gifting a season game membership. Thank you, Dreary, as always, for your generosity. And same shout out to Ash Axiom, both gifting 1 SG membership. Thank you so much, guys. Always,
thanks for your gift.
Always very supportive of the channel. I said guys, but you know what I mean. That's
Travis, we're trying to encourage gift giving. Don't make it a penalty to give gifts.
Why? Because I said creepily, thanks for your gift.
Yes.
Didn't like that?
Well, I don't want to speak for these people that gave us these generous gifts. They might love it, but we just want to incentivize.
Look, how's my driving? If that encouraged you to give a gift, let me know in the comments. And if it scared you off, made you uncomfortable, go ahead and tell me that.
Don't do it. Try. He loves it. He wants to make you uncomfortable. Don't tell him.
Yeah, you're only going to encourage him.
I feed off of it. I don't know why.
All right, let's jump over. And I know we're getting deep into the show already, but I want to talk about the PS5 Pro, which if you kind of talk around the industry or kind of paid attention, it's kind of the worst kept secret. It's a readily known thing that's been coming. We've been talking about it for a while. And the expectation as it stands right now is we've got a state of play coming in either this week or next week, probably next week, I would assume, that is going to introduce the PS5 Pro, its pricing, its release date, etc. For those who may recall, the PS4 Pro was actually announced in September, on September 6th, and actually launched 2 months later in November. So this is not kind of unprecedented to be announced this late. But this is something that's obviously been worked on for a while. And I have all the kind of tech specs that we know. I'm not going to get into the hardcore details of them here. The gist of this is a GPU rendering boost that is very strong, nearly a 50% boost in GPU rendering, memory bandwidth up by about 30%, faster CPU, more RAM allocated to the developers for the games themselves, and what they're calling PSSR, which is the basically kind of like FSR DLSS, which is the upresing, but a custom kind of proprietary solution by Sony and PlayStation. So, it's hard to see until we see it in reality and what it's going to do. But the idea here is the same, is that first party will have enhanced games, and they're going to encourage developers to enhance their games for the PlayStation 5 Pro, particularly around giving additional graphic and frame rate options with a focus on ray tracing. We'll see how that turns out. We heard about that a lot 4 years ago with these consoles. And the price model, as expected, or I should say, guesses around the price model are either 600 or 700. I don't think Sony is crazy enough to try and sell a console at 700, but we'll see.
Haven't they done it before? Or was that 600?
They did 6 for the high-end PS3 in the US anyway. But the long and the short of it is, for people that I've talked to who kind of are deep into tech side, what we're seeing out of this, these specs and stuff, assuming these are all accurate and true, is pretty powerful. It is a significant jump over what a PS5 can do today. The big questions I wanted to ask you guys are really twofold. Is what I find most interesting is forget about the tech specs and stuff. One, what is its place in the global market? Let's say it launches at 600 and we start to see PS5 Pro enhanced titles from first party and some third parties. Where does it sit in the marketplace today? Do you think that the market in 2024 is any different than 2016, 2017 when we saw the 4 Pro and 1X? And then two, I think the bigger question for me, as always with console hardware, is will the developers properly utilize it? Will they put the development resources in? And is it easy enough to use this power to really showcase a notable difference between your standard PS5 game and your PS5 Pro game? I have a third question we'll get to, but let me know your guys' thoughts on those two if you don't mind. I don't care.
Sure.
Who kicks this off.
Well, I've talked about this before, but I have thought that the PlayStation 5 generation here has not essentially been worth it. That if I knew then what I know now about how many games would be available through the PlayStation 4 ecosystem and how Sony's kind of production of games would slow down so much in the PlayStation 5 era, I probably wouldn't have gotten a PlayStation 5. And then I would have gotten maybe a Pro at that point in time. But right now, I basically feel like I have wasted my money on the PlayStation 5 for the most part, and I'm disinclined, certainly at $700, but even $600, to jump on to what I would anticipate being, to answer your second question, a 60 frames per second box, right? Ray tracing is nice to talk about. All these various things are nice to talk about, but the best case scenario for these things has tended to be that they're built for the PlayStation 5. They're built for whatever the actual generation is that they can sell the most copies on, and then you use the extra power to get a smoother frame rate, probably not a lot of bells and whistles, and that certainly isn't worth the money to me.
I think it's kind of a complicated question to answer because we don't really know what the alternative is to PlayStation's current model, but I agree with what Hoga's saying, which is that the strategy of releasing a incrementally more powerful console and then putting everything on your old console because you're afraid of abandoning that player base has a bad effect on the development of your games for that console, because I feel like you have to, hold them back a little bit. That said, I think if it were up to me, right, every generation of consoles would have an accessible version that does most of the things that you need it to do and probably doesn't run it at 60 frames or whatever, right? It would be like a discount box, a Series S like device, if you will. And then there would be like a high end thing that's too expensive and not really marketable for like average gamers that people like me could buy, who are just like obsessed with this and want a more performant box. And then you could charge me like $750 for that, and I probably wouldn't really care because it's worth it to me, right? I don't know that model makes sense. I don't know that I'm thinking about it like a PC, right, where there's room in every PC game for the discount PC to do it, whatever performance it's going to do, and also for the high end 4090s to do things. And so if we could replicate that in the console space, it would be fantastic. And I think it would be probably the best of both worlds. What we have seen is that maybe that doesn't work, right? With the Series S, we still have some questions about like, if the Series S is supposed to be able to do everything just in 1080p, then why, did the Baldur's Gate 3 developers have trouble with that platform because they couldn't get co-op to work? And there's like these other kind of questions that I don't think we know the answer to. But I think ideally every generation has two consoles for all the platforms, one for people who don't mind paying a premium, and the other one for like normal people who just want a box that plays all the most recent games. But I do think this cross-generation salve is pretty bad. Like, I think the idea of having a PS5 and then still putting everything on the PS4, I think that's like the worst version of what we're trying to do, because the PS4 was not designed to run PS5 games at a lower resolution. The Series S was designed to do that. And so I think that's closer to what I think should be happening, right? Is just like a box that was designed to run all the same games, but at a lower price point and lower fidelity. But yeah, I think PS5 Pro could work if the strategy's right. I don't have a ton of confidence that the strategy's right. I'll probably still buy the box because I play games for a living. So, you know.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm in pretty similar space. I mean, I'm going to buy it regardless. That's just what I do. You know, I want to check it out. I want to play on it. My hope, of course, is that, you know, generally speaking, I prefer to play on console if I can. Obviously, I have a new higher end PC, so there's certain games like Wukong right now I'm playing on PC. You know, there's certain games that I prefer to play on PC, just either for frame rate or for some other reason. But if I can get the majority of my experience on my console plug and play, on my home theater, TV, etc., and I can get frame rate without sacrificing 100% of the visuals, you know, PS5 Pro or whatever, it's not going to match your top end PC right now. But if I can get most of the way there, or a good percentage of the way there on a console space, I'm going to do that. I'd enjoy that. So we'll see. I'm a little curious because today's market is drastically different from 2016 and 2017. And I'm curious to see what this looks like, especially because from what we know, we don't know definitively, but the word on the street, if you will, on the Xbox side is no mid-gen refresh, new console 2026. That's what's being talked about behind the scenes right now. So,
well, and I think more important, at least to me, I can't speak for everybody, obviously, is that it's no surprise. I'm sure to folks that have followed my story, I don't have a ton of discretionary income for these various things. And there is a refresh of the Nintendo Switch coming out as soon as we might be talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro. I mean, very similar in time frame. So at bare minimum, for me, that's Switch money. Super Switch, whatever they call it.
They better call it the Super Switch, damn it.
Super Switch is right now.
No, they're gonna come up with a noise. It's gonna be called like the Switch Boof, you know, something like that.
It is gonna be called the Nintendo Boof or something. Yeah. It should be Super Switch.
It should be the Nintendo Super Switch. Yeah, I don't blame you at all, especially knowing your gaming habits, right? That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I'm curious, you know, obviously I think we're all curious to see what this does. I think the third question I want to ask, which I think is the most relevant question to at least the percentage of hardcore gamers, is if this comes out and it does provide a notable boost, that will give a pretty distinct third-party game advantage to the PlayStation side for the foreseeable future. And you're talking about some pretty major games releasing. Obviously, I mean, we have major games releasing all the time nowadays. But I mean, if you think about, you know, the one everyone keeps bringing up is GTA 6, of course. We don't know what that looks like. Who knows? But, you know, if you just think about the console space and like third-party games, if you have a distinct graphical and or frame rate advantage on PS5 Pro versus a Series X, I'm not saying there will be. I'm just saying if. You know, for people who play on console and play on all platforms, like a lot of us do around here, I'm going to be buying more games on the PlayStation side, definitely, because that's just, you know, that makes perfect sense at that point. But also, I think that's a big if.
Didn't Xbox throw down and say that they were never going to not be the most powerful?
They did, which is still true because this is not a console generation.
They said a lot of stuff, Travis.
That's also true.
I'm beginning to think that maybe we can't trust our corporate lords.
Well, just to be fair, that's not the PS6. It's an upgrade to the PS5.
But they said they would. I think the quote was that they were always going to have the more powerful console in the market, and so they would not be the most powerful console. So I'm saying maybe
you haven't seen the Soulja Boy 2 yet.
I think there's a case to be made they're not the most powerful console now. Right? I mean, people get stuck on numbers and teraflops and things, but you can see that it does appear like the PlayStation 5 games wind up being a little bit better operationally. And you can blame optimization and player base for that as much as you want. That's something Xbox has to work through. But I'm not as interested in the Xbox side of things as I am in the Sony value proposition. And to the extent it's an incremental upgrade, they're going to have to make the games for the PlayStation 5 at the same time. I don't see a reason to replace my box right now.
Fair enough.
Especially
Fair
since
enough.
I do want that money for the Switch. So
I think the other thing that annoys it annoys me in a way is like the one thing I don't think, and I've talked about this, I don't think Xbox gets enough credit for is their ecosystem approach. Whereas when I buy a game on Xbox, right, I can just walk across my room and play it on my PC if I want to play at higher frame rate or different settings or whatever. And I do that all the time. I mean, I play games on both all the time. Whereas in PlayStation, it's like, well, I bought Concord, for instance, on PC. I can't go play it on my PlayStation.
Even worse, if you do buy it on your PlayStation, because they gave me codes for both. They gave me codes for PC and PlayStation. I tried to play my PC version and then have D join me in multiplayer on the console version, and they're tied to the same account. And it's like you can't be logged onto both of these copies at the same time. So even though you buy 2 copies, you still can't play on 2 people. So I think the PlayStation digital ecosystem is like real bad.
Yeah, it needs work. Right.
It needs work. Yeah.
Real bad.
So, yeah, I guess we'll see. I think, I mean, we know this is coming. We should see it very, very soon. I wanted to talk about it today because we're not having a show next week. And my expectation is this will have been shown by the time we come back in 2 weeks' time. So we'll see what it looks like. Obviously, we'll have a longer conversation on the Pro once we know what it is, what it costs, when it's coming out, and what to expect. I think kind of transitioning in the PlayStation sense, what I'm also interested in, let's assume a state of play. You're assuming a console mid-gen refresh, which they're going to want to have to sell, of course. They need to show us something. And we haven't seen much from PlayStation. We've talked about that at length here, too. So we know they have Death Stranding 2 coming with Mr. Kojima. We know they have Wolverine coming. And we obviously know some of the other kind of smaller things. Astrobot will have just released. But what do you want to see from PlayStation in this next state of play? Let's assume for a second this state of play is the only showcase, word in quotes, we get out of PlayStation this year. What do you want to see from them? What are you hoping to see? What IPs, anything you have in mind from them that you're waiting for?
I mean, 100%. The obvious answer is you pony up the money to Take-Two and to Rockstar, and you make a video showing how much better Grand Theft Auto 6 looks on your PlayStation 5 Pro. Like, that's what they should be showing. And if they don't, if they're showing minor things to games that are not going to move units like that, I love Death Stranding. I'm super excited for 2. It's not Grand Theft Auto. That's what you would do. Is you would try to get that and show it that if you want to play Grand Theft Auto 6 the way it was meant to be played, whatever you want to say marketing wise, you need a PlayStation 5 Pro.
Worth noting that Rockstar has said in the past that they don't put their games on PC for the first year because people steal it.
Launch.
So that, you know, whoever has the most powerful console when Grand Theft Auto comes out is legitimately going to move the needle for that console maker, I think.
Which it's not my cup of tea. I'm not waiting with bated breath for Grand Theft Auto.
No one cares about your cup of tea, Hogue. We're talking about what's going to move mountains. Here.
You know, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but it'd be quite funny, honestly, because I think all of us think that Grand Theft Auto 6 will, all of us here, I mean, the 3 of us, probably think that it's going to get delayed to 2026. And it's not going to release next year. And if that happens and Xbox actually has their new console come out in 2026, that's going to be quite a funny environment to live through, I'm sure.
I'm trying to think if any Rockstar game has not been delayed. I don't think they've ever. Well, I don't.
They've only released 2 games in the past decade, so
both of those were delayed. But I mean, like even all the way back, I can't think of one that wasn't delayed.
Yeah, I don't know. Ping pong launched on time. Come on.
I might have,
but I don't know if it did either. But on the topic at hand, like I think if we're going to announce PS5, I keep wanting to say PS4 Pro, PS5 Pro at this state of play, I have to imagine they're going to unveil some of the first party stuff that we've been curious about, including something we probably haven't seen before. I'm also going to bet, and it's the reason we worked on the thumbnail this week with Wolverine. I'll go ahead and bet now, and you can tell me if you disagree, that we're going to see the first gameplay for Wolverine.
I'm still in the whatever the opposite of a honeymoon phase is for Spider-Man 2, so that doesn't get me excited at all.
I will say Insomniac has proven time and time again that they make games hella fast. And so I would not be surprised if we did see some gameplay for Wolverine.
I really do feel like Insomniac is kind of like the first party for PlayStation that's kind of like From, where they very smartly reuse things that they know can help their development. And it feels like Spider-Man Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2 were that. Feels like some of that stuff was used in Ratchet, and we're going to see the same with Wolverine. You're going to see similar design sensibilities in Wolverine that you saw in Spider-Man. Not saying they're going to be the same game, but I think it's going to happen. You know, Insomniac's very good at that, is what I'm just agreeing with you on, Travis. But yeah, I think we'll see Wolverine. I'm going to place that bet right now.
Hell yeah. I mean, I'm down.
I'm
not particularly excited for the Wolverine, but more of a Blade guy myself.
I'm excited for Blade too.
It's never going to exist.
I don't think Blade is real. At least
I don't think so either. But I'm saying if I had to choose, we need a good vampire game to wash the Redfall out of our mouths.
Come on, don't beat down.
I'm sorry. But
all right, so you guys aren't giving me much here on what you expect or want to see. Is that more of a testament to PlayStation really not telling us much lately?
Yeah, I think they're in incognito mode, which, you know, that's worked for them in the past. They probably got, you know, some big Shenmue 4 announcement or something we're not expecting.
Show me a fancy Ghost of Tsushima 2, I guess. But I mean, I none of this is getting me excited even mentioning it.
Really? So Wolverine, Ghost of Tsushima 2 tease, you could say, doesn't get you excited at all?
No. Yeah, no, it'll be the same. It'll be the kind of tease where you go take a rendered look at a katana and say, coming soon.
I'm also just, please don't give me any more samurai games. I will self-harm. I'm so sick of it.
Well, luckily Shadows comes out in November.
You're so sick of samurai games. What are you playing behind the scenes that have so many samurai in them?
Every game has got goddamn samurai in it, man. I'm sick of it. I get it, bro. Japan.
I don't think I've played a game with a samurai in it recently.
Concord's next character, samurai.
All right.
Right. Can add it to every game. No, I mean, we've talked about this on the show a bunch, Hogue. Like every time I turn around, I'm like, man, it's another one of these goddamn games.
Games. I just assume it's on the street. You're just in San Francisco, you see a samurai, and you're like, not again.
Like, I mean, kind of. You'd be surprised how much samurai culture there is around me. You know, they show up, they fight for the crabs. I'm like, these.
Oh no, not the crab fights. Not good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see. Obviously, like I said, the prevailing info is that we're going to see this next week, the state of play on the PS5 Pro. So I hope we do, because then when we get back, we'll be able to talk about that at more length and see what we're actually dealing with in reality.
Sorry we couldn't give you much to chew on.
I tried to set you up.
I think the takeaway
I feel like you don't have to apologize for this. This is Sony is sorry that they didn't give us much to chew on, and it just came through.
It's fair.
I think if you're going to announce a new console, you also have to announce a content plan for that console.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Your content plan better be cool. So I'm excited for them to. I don't care about Ghost of Tsushima 2. I think Wolverine's a known quantity, and also like, okay, another superhero game that doesn't really get me out of bed. But if you can announce some new thing, new IP, something I wasn't expecting, something super cool, I'm in. Please don't make it Ragnarok, remastered in 120 FPS or something like that.
You are absolutely getting a trailer for God of War Ragnarok remastered, Spider-Man 2. You're getting upgrades for those.
See that during the
and you know what, Hogue? Just to make you more upset, it's going to come bundled with God of War 1, 2018.
2018.
And it's going to be called War Mastered.
War Mastered. No.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Just to upset you. Yeah. God of War War Mastered.
The first inklings of Snow and God of War that you all see, know that somewhere Hogue just died.
Yeah. That'll be nice.
So we did put a poll up on the SG side of the house around, regardless of price, if you game on the PlayStation 5, will you buy a PS5 Pro? Only 19% right now are saying yes, definitely. The majority, 43%, say we'll wait and see how it's supported. So I think, which is kind of an obvious answer, right? You got to see what they're going to offer.
And also, if you asked me what percentage of people who listen to a gaming podcast would actually even be interested in a pro gaming console, I would have guessed like 20%. So
higher than your normal market. Yeah.
Higher than your normal market, but also like it's still a minority of people overall who are even going to care about that sort of thing.
Well, and it doesn't exist yet, right? I mean, we're talking about rumors. We don't have a price. We don't have a shape of the box. We don't have anything to react to.
We do have a shape of the box.
Will you buy this unknown thing in the future? 20%.
It looks
shape of the box, by the way.
It looks just like the PS5 Slim, but with 3 stripes.
Shape of the Box, by the way, really, really unpopular sequel to Shape of Water. Didn't do as well.
We're at that time of the show where Travis just goes completely off the rails.
I don't know. I've been pretty unhinged all day today. Give me a little credit, all right?
Oh man, good stuff. Well, anyway, we can. I think you already mentioned Legend of Heroes, if I'm correct here, Hogue. Anything else?
I have not, but I do want
to. Okay. I thought you referenced it earlier.
We talked briefly about Date Everything as being shown in the Nintendo Direct and the indie world. My biggest news from this is that one of my favorite RPG series of all time, which is Falcom's Legend of Heroes, is getting a remake for its older titles, the Trails in the Sky. And I think that's a big thing that we should note, because it's getting a remake to put it into something like a modern context for what I imagine will be a Switch 2 or Super Switch or Snap or Boof or whatever. And I think that is worth commenting on, because if you do like JRPGs, if you like RPGs at all, The Legend of Heroes is the only one that I can really think of as a series that commits to world building over the course of like 15 or 20 games and really does a good job of it. And so the fact that they are remaking it and making it an easier entry point for people that don't want to play on PlayStation 1 graphics with 2D sprites walking around is a good thing. Now, Ains didn't know the name of this series, Travis, when we talked in the pre-show. Is this one you're familiar with? I said Travis will know The Legend of Heroes.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it. I haven't played it.
I was not trying to impugn your gaming knowledge, Ains.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know. But I have
good.
not played any of these. I was surprised to hear you say did you just say 15 to 20 games?
Right. So The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky is followed up by Trails of Cold Steel, and it's its own series. And they do have continuation of characters and plot lines, but it's all in the same world. So unlike Final Fantasy, where you kind of give up and have to restart every time.
Yeah.
This is all, you can take the knowledge that you have and say, oh, okay, we're back here, and now this is different because it's however many years later and we're with a different group.
Also, most people I know just call it the Trails series. So
I have a problem with that because I confuse it with Tales. So I don't call it Trails. But yes, it's Trails in the Sky, and then it's Trails of Cold Steel. But then the names get weird. They kind of go full Square Enix and start saying Daybreak. And
never go full Square Enix.
Never go full Square Enix. But yeah, I'm really excited about this one. And it kind of got passed over really quickly in the announcement videos. So I think this is something to get excited about. Now, I might be the biggest kind of Falcom RPG fan, certainly on this panel, but like maybe talking about games, because I love the East series. These are the people that make East as well. And I am super enthused about this. So like when we talk about things I'm excited about, it's not the PlayStation first party games that I know of yet, because I don't know of any, but it is things like this.
This one is coming. Okay.
I'm really hopeful that this makes this series as big as it should be.
So when I played Ease 10 Nordics, I interviewed the studio director for Nihon Falcom, and we talked about the Trails series and their upcoming game. So I will be playing this. I'm excited for it. Trails is pretty dope. I like it more than the East series. I don't know where you stand on that.
I like East more, but East is a little bit more superficial, right? Like they don't try to get deep into world building in East.
Okay. That is true. Yeah, they are very much like adventure anthology entries. But yeah, I'm gonna play this game when I get time. I mean, I probably won't finish East 10 Nordics, nor did I finish Mana, Visions of Mana, even though I put like 40 hours into that. I didn't finish it. By the way, that game, I didn't get to talk about it, but that game gets to a point where it becomes really grindy, and the people I know who beat the game say that once you get over that hump, it ends up being worth it, and the payoff's really good, and the ending is good. I probably will not make it over that hump just based on what I've played so far, but I did have fun leading up to it. So Visions is
This is
cool.
Visions. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get to talk about it, but yeah, I put a lot of time into Visions of Mana, and yeah, just that was something on my mind.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm gonna play Trails.
Trails on your Super Switch U coming early next year.
Switch Zaza.
Super Switch Y. They're going to add a letter to the end again and hope it works out this time.
Yeah.
Would it actually be any worse than naming your console, like your fourth console, the One? I mean, Nintendo will name it whatever, and it'll be fine. The Switch was great.
Look, I
Switch
give Nintendo a lot of guff for the naming of their consoles, but I do think the Nintendo Switch is the best named console ever.
It does what it says.
It does what it says. It's
good.
catchy. You get to make a ton of Switch puns all in the same Nintendo Direct and pretend like you didn't just make that joke 5 seconds ago. It's great. No notes.
No notes.
Nope.
I have nothing to add to that.
Nothing. Carry on. All right. Yeah, so let's go ahead and start wrapping this train up. So like I said, just a reminder, we will not be here next Sunday. We'll be back on the 15th talking a whole lot of Astrobot, Space Marine 2, potentially PlayStation games, and who knows what else. I'm excited about that. If you haven't checked out the SG side of the Concord review, the Star Wars Outlaw review, those are up, both video and written. You can check those out. I didn't get to it this week, but I still have that unboxing I was going to do. And then I was just going to shout this out real quick. So this is the new Razer Wolverine version 3 Pro kind of competitive controller, which is actually designed for or in collaboration with Xbox. So it is a very advanced controller. It's got, all the paddles built in. It's Hall effect thumbsticks. It's got the mouse triggers, the whole competitive suite. So been using that a little bit. I'm going to do a review of that this week too, and kind of compare it to the Elite, to the Scuff, and some other competitive controllers. I like it a lot so far. Of course, my one frustration is that I swear to make the perfect Xbox controller or competitive controller, you need to take like some pieces of all of them and make like a hybrid, because there's things I love about it. There's a couple things I don't like about it. And it feels like there is no perfect controller. You kind of live with, whatever best suits you, I think. So more to come on that. But anyway, that's what's coming on the SG side. I will hand it to you, Travis, this week. What do you got?
Yeah, well, we didn't talk about Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred because nobody on this panel likes or plays Diablo.
I had it on the list and removed it only because we've talked about it quite a bit so far, including last week. So I figured I would wait until, we're at launch or reviewing.
I'm still on my hardcore train, but I do want to say that it slowed considerably this week because I did not want to play with my hardcore Diablo character while I was on tilt from playing Star Wars Outlaws. I didn't feel that was wise. So
yeah,
my guy's still alive, but instead of the big move from 19 to 31, this week was a move from 31 to 33.
Okay. That's very good. Anyway, Diablo did have some great news. They did a 2-hour fire chat this week, which I covered. And I also interviewed the team about adding rune words to Diablo 4 from Diablo 2, which has been speculated and requested for a long time, and apparently was actually supposed to be a part of the base game last year, but it didn't. It got cut, and they're adding it in post. But yeah, I got some information on that, so you can read an article about rune words on IGN. My review of Squirrel with a Gun is out in the wild. I'm going to have a video version probably tomorrow at some point once the team gets a chance to edit it. And then, my review of Concord is live. My next review is Satisfactory. And then after that, I think I'm on to Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred, which
Nice.
should be that's
should-
pretty soon actually. It's in the middle of
Yeah, it's October 8th,
right?
right?
October, or
Yeah.
beginning of October. Yeah, so I'll probably get it later this month, which will be fun.
Yeah, hopefully we're review buddies on that one like we were for the main game again. That'll be cool.
I'm sure we will be, sir. That'll be fun.
I hope so. Yep.
We'll be spirit born again.
Yeah. There's already they've shown kind of the map too that's being added to. The new region is at the bottom of the sanctuary map. And
I have to say, my nitpick with the where it is on the map is that does not seem geographically accurate to the past Diablo world building that we've been given. Isn't there supposed to be an ocean in between?
You're supposed to cross. Yeah. I mean, the game ends that way, right? You're supposed to cross over to this other region over
so
here.
Why is it now connected?
But I'm not an expert. I could be wrong, but I thought
what
the same
happened?
thing.
Is this a reverse Pangea? What's going on here? Anyway,
on that note,
so that's what I got going on.
Cool. Hardcore Hogue. What you got?
I cannot speak to the geography of Sanctuary, but the fact that it's a realm built by angels and demons solely to have humans to feed on, I'm not sure that we have.
Look, I'm allowed to have questions.
Okay.
What's going on with the plate tectonics of this place? That's what I
All
asked.
right. Well, I did want to say that we're not here next week. Part of that reason for that is that I'm not going to be where I usually am next week. I'm going to be in San Diego, California.
Cool.
And if you want to see me live for Last Stand Media, I'm doing a show down there on this coming Friday. So I don't know whether tickets are still available, but I will be down there and trying to stay awake late into the night in California, which is even later into the night here in the Eastern time zone. So we're going to do our best. If you see me falling asleep, just throw something at me to wake me up.
Nice. You're going to be there with Cog.
I will be there with Cog. I will be there with Last Stand. Everybody will be there. It's framed out as Sacred Symbols versus Defining Duke. So their PlayStation show versus their Xbox show.
Where do you sit on that?
I asked the same question, and apparently I sit with the Dukes.
Okay.
Well,
So
you sit with
Maddie?
Xbox? That's not where I would put you. I would not put you there.
He's a spy, it seems like. He's going to try and... I'll talk to Cog. He's going to have to prepare for that.
Yeah, dude. It's gonna be like when he was on the Mass Effect 1 team, and then you found out that he was an Andromeda stan. It's really it's gonna hurt their case. Look, I think
the Mass Effect 1 thing is done. It's dusted. We know it's the best. It's the best. Just like, by the way, I forgot to shout out earlier, so don't go just yet, because we finally have a definitive answer to this question, which we can close out, which is, what is the best Final Fantasy? Many of us say 6, many say 7. The answer from Mr. Sakaguchi himself is 6.
Now,
put it to bed.
I don't want to lawyer you on this, Ains.
Hogue, don't do it. Just move on. Hogue, just move on. Don't lawyer it.
I do have to say that most complete is not synonymous with best.
Also, his opinion.
He had to do it. We all speak English here. We knew this, Hogue.
Even if he said it was the best, his opinion is not definitive on which one's the best.
It's definitive. All right.
Here's the thing. Final Fantasy 6 is obviously
it's a fact.
Yeah, you need to be more factual.
Final Fantasy 6 is obviously the best, and anyone that disputes that is just needlessly trying to argue monger. But we don't need someone, even if they worked on the game, to tell us it's the best, to know in our hearts that it is true.
Also true. You're back. You're back in, Hogue. You're back in.
Yes,
I like it. So Mass Effect 1, Final Fantasy 6 stands. I hope you have a fantastic week of gaming. The rest of you who don't believe those are the best in the series, you're wrong. You too, Travis. Go play Squirrel with a Gun some more. We got a late breaking super chat from Mr. Don Lionheart.
Hey, Don.
Don Lionheart gives me $5, and he writes, "Hello, Bitcast. Happy September. Enjoying Outlaws. It's good, but it's not amazing. Some of it feels underbaked. Oh well, like all or Star Wars."
Shout out to Don. Don, two things. One, Don and I have been playing a lot of Concord together. So Don is awesome. It's been a pleasure getting to know him more. 2, I love that he still spells Bitcast with the capital C. I think we did that like the first month we started the show 8 years ago or 7 years ago, but not since. But I appreciate
Breaking news. I just learned that's not how you're supposed to spell Bitcast, because I also put a capital C.
No, that's not what we do, but that's fine. It's fine. It's kind of like PlayStation with the capital S. You can do it if you want. Doesn't really matter. No one cares.
PlayStation does have a capital S in it, though. That one's not even up for debate.
Yeah, they'll yell at you if you don't use the capital.
They will
S.
yell at you, and your editor will also correct you if you spell
I do correct that quite a bit in some of the stuff we write.
Yeah.
Now, Ains, are we going to talk about Travis starting all of these super chats by stating that the money is to him directly? Is this?
Yeah, I like the approach. You know,
to be clear, I have never received a penny for my work at Bitcast, and if you've watched the show, you can see why.
When you say work, can you be more definitive of what you mean?
It seems like work to me. I have to wake up at 7 a.m. and I have to be on this show for multiple hours. And sometimes Hogue keeps me going for 3 hours so that he could talk about Skull and Bones. To the point.
Damn it, we hadn't mentioned it all show. You had to go into it. You did it to yourself now. See?
That's what she said.
Well, yeah. Don, thank you. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. It's been a fun show. Chat, you've been awesome as always. Thank you for the support. Hope you have 2 good weeks of gaming. And we will see you on September 15th after we get to play the game of the year known as Astrobot.
You are Astrobot.